We're going to be talking about everything African. We're going to be having debates, discussions, entertainment, as well as learning about business, art, history, and everything in between. Cultural, tribalism, and everything. We're going to be out here debating with some really interesting stuff. So like the video, share the video, and make sure you subscribe. Make sure you subscribe. Subscribe for the best experience ever. This is the biggest channel on the Afrosphere. So come and join the team, become a Kaizoran, and join the Kaizoran Empire.
Universally exist within myself, within this premise, and I exist within this bluebird in the sky. I'ma fly like the blue in the sky. I'ma fly like bird in the sky. I'ma fly like bluebird in the sky. I'ma fly like bluebird in the sky. I'ma fly like bluebird in the sky. I'ma throw my bluebird in the sky. I'ma soar like bluebird in the sky. I'ma soar like bluebird in the sky. I'ma fly like bluebird in the sky. I'ma fight like bluebird in the sky. I'ma eat like bluebird in the sky. I'ma be like bluebird in the sky. I'ma be bluebird in the sky. I'ma be free, bluebird in the sky. I'ma be free like bluebird in the sky. I'ma be like bluebird in the sky. Back again like the second coming. Strumming my vocal cords like the hummingbird in the sky. Y'all can't deny this. Real rap lyrics, it's like I ain't got no rhyming through the sky limit. What is skin tone, shade of color, but a parallel form of frequency like a ringtone on your phone. Melanin expression, tied up in the universe, feeling like God. Is this really us? Is it serious? Is it really wrong to be diverse? I'm a divergent, immerse myself like an ocean beneath its waves. Be a divergent, born to be different. Indigo child, wild like canary, born to be a bluebird in the sky. Flying high like a bluebird in the sky. I'ma fly high, bluebird in the sky. Yeah, bluebird in the sky. I'ma fly high, bluebird in the sky. I'ma be like bluebird in the sky. I'ma be like bluebird in the sky. Everybody scream bluebird in the sky. I'ma fly high, bluebird in the sky. I'ma be like bluebird in the sky. Yeah, bluebird in the sky. Everybody, bluebird in the sky. I'ma be like bluebird in the sky. I'ma be like born black, sweet like a berry. Flying high like a canary. Scary with my hoodie on. Hating on my vibe on the street that you'll be feeling my frequency of the song. But I know that I ain't never ever gonna be ever the same. But I know.
What's good? What's good? Hopefully everyone is doing good today. Shout out to the people in the chat. Shout out to Ike Ogiamien over there as well. Yeah, today's discussion it's going to be on who built Western civilization. Is the West civilized? Why do Africans run there if it's not? Of course, I'm reacting to a video, and here it's Middleman or Middle Earth. Interesting guy, very high IQ, but sometimes he does say some pandering things to the so-called global South. So we're going to be dissecting that video and kind of seeing where we're going to get some understandings or anything. So make sure you like the video and share it if you can on your platforms or your friends, families, etc. Yeah, so shout out to you guys. Anyways, let's not waste too much time. Let's go ahead and start seeing the video. All right.
Video that was shared to me from TikTok by a brother named Terry. Shout out to Terry for sending this video in. This video is quite an interesting one. It's from an interview where we see this man basically hold a mirror up to the face of the West, then he chewed them and spat them out. Now, as always, because this video is quite long, I would not be interjecting as much because I do not want to disrupt the flow in the conversation that was being had. But put in mind that once in a while I will
West, and they want you to be more specific because they're West, and they want you to be more specific because there is no monolithic block called the West. It is an unfair generalization, they say.
You know, it's strange, if you think about it. It's strange that you don't want me to call you the West. You don't want everyone to be lumped together under that term. It's not my term, it's your term. I didn't come up with it, you did. You call yourselves the West. Western civilization. We all grew up hearing about how wonderful the West is. Western achievement, Western thought, Western
Yeah, we didn't just grow up hearing it. Most of us ran away from our dusty countries to the great Western civilization, and that is a fact, right? So no, this is not simply a feeling or, we heard about it. Yeah, we heard about it because these things were reverberating, right? Over there, right? That is the situation. Yeah, exactly. It's not just a feeling. That's the thing. A lot of people love to say this stuff here. Well, we heard about it. Oh, no, it's a fact.
Enlightenment. You're happy to take collective credit as the West for whatever you think is good. But for the bad things, you want to disassociate yourselves from it. When you're talking about the bad things, then you're like, whoa, what West are you talking about exactly? Who do you mean by the West? The way you people tell the story, people like
Also, shout out to is it Middle Earth? No, that's not a common characterization, right? Most people, when they talk about the West, they're not really caring about this negative characterization. This is this specific interviewer. I've never even heard someone not claim the West before, and I've spoken to a lot of so-called Western people in the UK and America. So this is an individual's response, right? When they're being characterized, it's not a common thing. Meaning, most people who claim the Western civilization always claim it through and through. In fact, the British people that claim the British Empire still say, hey, colonization was great for Africa. We built them trains, we gave them infrastructure, and we gave them education. And by large, all those things are true. They really did build Africa.
Douglas Murray or Jordan Peterson or Sam Harris or Richard Dawkins or Hitchens, Christopher Hitchens, all these types, you would think that every European on the continent participated in painting the Sistine Chapel.
The first step here, right? So we're now discussing whether every single dusty in the so-called Western civilization contributed in painting, the Western civilization. No, that's not how it works, right? But I will say this. Enough of them came together in a collective, right? They built books, or rather wrote books. These books were read by other people that came after them, and it galvanized people into action, into setting up the environment, the culture that prioritizes intellectual pursuits, understanding of a political system, and then they went out there and did it. So whether every single dusty, participated in a high-level position in the building of this so-called Western civilization is irrelevant. The point is, enough of them did their part in order to galvanize everyone else to make sure that they create this thing that we know as the Western civilization.
Everyone painting in shifts. All of you collectively invented penicillin.
Yes, culture. Here's a difference, right? If you look at African culture, you are the medicine men, and actually many of them did actually have some foundational understandings of some tree barks that you can beat up, you can heat it up with some water, give it to someone as a soup or put it on some wound, and guess what? It did its miracles, right? So that the penicillin situation wasn't invented by the Western civilization, but it was codified by the Western civilization. And that's the difference between the Western civilization versus other civilizations, or rather African civilizations, right? They actually passed on that knowledge, they codified it, they made it into an actual information pathway which other people can learn from it, right? So yes, collectively they did, because it's culture. All of this is all about culture. What do you value? Do you value singing? Do you value Ifa divinations? Do you value going around and playing your drums? Or do you value sitting down, reading? And you give those people who sit down and read the ability to express themselves without calling them, demon possessed or something. So yes, they did collectively do this because they created a culture that allowed all these scientific discoveries to exist.
From the telephone to airplanes, from the cotton gin to the microchip, you all did that as one gigantic team effort. We, the West.
Yes, they did, actually. That's the reality. We can look at it in many different angles, but yes, they did. Right? That's how they built their civilization. That's how they're able to move far beyond other groups, because fortunately for them, that's how you build stuff. You get together, build a culture. Yes, they did.
Abolished slavery. We, the West, gave women the right to vote. We, the West, developed modern technology. You like being called the West then, but just bring up.
Yeah. Okay, I'll see if I can fix that, Mrs. H. Yeah, let me see. Yeah. Okay. I mean, I don't know if I would say they're culture prioritist, prioritized it. They simply were more ahead of us. Yeah, but Caesar, they created a culture that prioritizes intellectual pursuit, right? Intellectualism is not just an IQ problem; it's a culture problem. When you create that sort of environment, yeah, it does actually. It prioritizes a culture.
Just one of your innumerable atrocities, and then everyone starts looking around. Who, me? You must have me mistaken for some other person, some other West. Shaggy. It wasn't me.
And one thing that really annoys me is the fact that this group of people successfully made themselves the face of everything good and positive in this modern world and bask in the glory.
No, but they are. You see, this is where I really kind of try to understand, right? These are Africans in European countries for a reason, because it is better. It's a better side of sweet heaven. They run away from their countries. Literally, I'll be doing a presentation later on where 7,000 migrants from Africa arrived on European shores last night, right? Specifically Italy. And you don't get Italians running to Africa for a reason, because they built their nations. We didn't. But yeah, no, Caesar, it's all about culture, right? When you create a culture that prioritizes something, that prioritization is what creates more things. For example, if Black American culture prioritizes sports, guess what? You're going to see more sports people in that culture than other kind of intellectual pursuits.
Of their achievements in air quotes, whilst looking down on others and taking jabs at others for not having.
Yeah, Caesar, look, let me make the difference here, right? Igbo land is one dusty tribe in a whole continent, right? It is one tribe in a whole continent. The West is the whole continent. You see the difference there, Caesar? Even if Igbo land had its own little government, other African tribes or nations didn't. So the point is, there was never a galvanization of all those different African tribes into an African civilization. It was small, little, dusty civilizations here, there, and there. It was never joined together. Meanwhile, the West, right? The West galvanized their whole culture to do with, French culture, German culture, English culture, came together to create the Renaissance, right? That's when there was like a great change of ideation from, several different concepts. Art blossomed, music, culture, philosophy kind of trickled into the society, etc. That didn't happen on a continental widespread in Africa. That's what I'm trying to explain there. Mr. H, my audio is fine. I think it's your system. All right.
Having the same level of achievements in air quotes under their belts, and they do all of this while conveniently not putting into consideration the fact that while they were free and had the time to explore and invent things, they don't put into consideration the fact that when they were being free to build things and achieve things, other groups of people were literally being colonized.
Yeah, this is the biggest nonsense. And people like this who don't seem to understand how the world works are going to spread a lot of misinformation, right? The world works on if you don't conquer me, I will conquer you. If you don't go and build something, I'll build it first, and then I'll create the system, then I'll trap you in the system, right? That's how post-colonialism works, right? It's all about who does what first. There's no such thing as fairness in this world. And I think that's what the lady's trying to get at, right? So we'll just ignore her commentary, focus on Middle Nation as commentary, because otherwise we're just going to, we're going to end up not getting anything
English,
said.
moving on. You guys know what I mean.
And relatives would help the mom nurse the baby. R.W. Felkin actually documented a C-section that he witnessed in Uganda. Would help the mom shock as well, and then mother would be sections for hundreds of. Hey, let's talk about it. Midwives in the African countries of Tanzania, Congo, and Uganda have been successfully performing C-sections for hundreds of years. The mother would be sedated with a lot of banana wine, and the tools used during the surgery were sterilized with fire. The midwives would also clean their hands with wine as well, and then wash again with water. The baby survived, the mothers recovered well, and they were given herbal treatments to promote wound healing. Infection, shock, and excessive blood loss were pretty uncommon. The most
Yeah, this obviously this is cap, right? Unless you actually had unless you had antibacterials codified, right? This would have been pretty common, right? Because you will get infections over there, right? That's the reality there. Now, I'm not against this, right? I've seen this. I've even seen the Kisi people in Kenya actually perform brain surgery. So this is all true, right? I've seen it, right? In fact, let's see if I can find the video. I would be unmonetized or demonetized if I share that video. But since we're here for knowledge exchange, yes. Kaiser, did the Romans have antibiotics codified? No, they didn't, Caesar. No, they didn't. Some African people did have it utilized, right? They use it by accident. They call it herbal remedies. But the thing is, Africans don't like doing the same thing. For example, when they cook or something, they just throw things in, right? You could call that intuition, but it's not really. It's just that they just put things together thinking it's going to work. No, codification is knowing, okay, I need a certain temperature to cook my rice. I need a certain amount of water to rice ratio for the rice grain type. And then you repeat that process every time. You get the perfect results for your jollof rice. Most Africans don't do that, right? If the Romans didn't have antibiotics codified, we can give these Africans credit for their C-section. Yeah, look, Caesar. Yes, we give them credit. Like as I mentioned, forget the C-section, right? Kisis were doing brain surgery, right? In Kenya, that's a lot greater than some dusty C-section. If you're looking at the fact that you're dealing with the brain, and they claim 96% survival rates post surgery. Let me see if I can find the video, right? And they were using wine as a form of antiseptic and all that kind of stuff. This video is a little bit disturbing, so I am warning people. And yeah, since it's going to be demonetized, you just should donate at least $5 so that this video can still this is still worth my time for this presentation. But I'll share the video. It is a little bit disturbing, so if you don't want to watch it, yeah, turn away. No one's forcing you to look at it, but I just wanted to show that there were some Africans doing things. The difference, and I keep saying this, Caesar, to you, is they did not codify a culture of taking high-level people and pushing the culture forward and having other people learn it. Africans were focused on having elite griots. Okay, the griots carry the culture, the stories. They didn't write it down, right? They had so-called medicine men who were performing high-level shaman stuff, but they didn't codify it. They didn't teach other people. They didn't make it a practice that can transverse the culture. They allowed the practice to only transverse the groups of chosen elites. Anyway, so this is in Kenya. Shout out to you guys. It's a bit disturbing. Obviously, it's a live surgery performed, brain surgery. So, it is what it is. But yeah, this is, before the Europeans taught them anything.
The land of the Kisi. The land of mystery. The land of the witch doctor. And a chance to see the operation of the skulls. The witch doctor, the medicine man. In old Africa, he is the man who knows everything. There is a crisis here, and the witch doctor must act. And so, he prepares. He is careful, readying his instruments, testing the sharpness of the blades. Ready, he gathers his instruments. The universe holds its breath at the audacity of man. No anesthesia here, no hypnosis, only the psychosomatic belief and faith in one man, the witch doctor. Opening of the cranial cavity is the most delicate of operations. Modern surgical requirements are one sterile nurse, one instrument nurse, two circulating nurses, not sterile, one anesthesiologist, the chief surgeon, his personal assistant, a resident neurosurgeon, the interning physician attached to his staff. operating facilities, the low minimal requirements, surgical lamps, sufficient power to operate, 1 tank medical oxygen, blood of the proper type and factor, 500 units. Opening time, approximately 3 hours, depending, of course, on lack of complication. Surgery varies. Closing time, 2 hours or more. After 3.5 hours, the patient is tired. She is given something to drink, some water. The witch doctor and his assistants take time out to wet their mouths with beer. They are as casual as their patient, all evidently sharing the same complete confidence in the skill of the witch doctor. The surgical team enjoys the beer. The patient is given some gruel called uji. Obediently, the patient resumes her position for the continuation of surgery. Skull surgery. Trepanation in the outback. No oxygen, no surgical lights, no scrub nurses, no anesthesiologists, no neurosurgeons, not even sanitary, sterile conditions. And yet, the chances of survival? 96%. Better than in a London hospital. So say the old Africans. Europe, America, New Africa. They all know much, but understand little.
You hear that? The Africans knew a lot, but they understood little. What that statement is, they did stuff, the stuff that worked, but they refused to codify it into an actual science. That's what I'm trying to say, right? Now, imagine if there was a culture around this witch doctor performing his craft and perfecting it. Obviously, Africa could have blossomed. So, as I mentioned earlier, it's not really an IQ issue or we're low IQ. The problem really is culture. We didn't galvanize a culture that prioritized intellectual pursuits or just the art of codification, making things into reusable ways of doing things. That's a big issue, I would say, in Africa generally, right? Because as you see, there are some tribes out there doing things, but that wasn't my point, right, to begin with. My point was that we didn't codify things.
Southwise.
Even this was codified by who? Dwight Mann, right? If Dwight Mann didn't record this, this would not be codified. That's the issue, right? Dwight Mann came in, codified even all these African practices and scientific research endeavors. If Dwight Mann did not make this recording, no one from this tribe would even know this used to happen. That's the point, right? Even Dwight Mann codified the video that we're sharing right now.
The patient's head is washed clean with the old scrub water. Warthog fat is used as a dressing. What condition is the operation directed against? Anything from cancer of the brain to simple headache. Strips of banana leaves are used to bind the wound.
You hear that, right? They were doing brain surgery on something as simple as a really bad migraine to brain cancer. And that's exactly what Ike's statement is. Difference between a pro craftsman and engineer. The engineer would learn, okay, well, is a headache really the best situation to do brain surgery? brain cancer, probably, right? Etc. etc. So shut up.
Shut. No stitches here. And after 7½ hours, with a large hole in her skull, there for the rest of her life, the patient walks away.
Yeah, so look, as I mentioned earlier, right? Yes, Africans were doing some things. That's specific from the Kisi tribe in Kenya, right? But the issue here is not really were there some few people that did stuff. There were never culture. So in regards to the discussion, who built Western civilization? Was it the average dusty guy? No, it wasn't. But the people that did build it, right? Those elites created and galvanized a culture that prioritizes intellectual pursuit, right?
Was that it took longer for milk to come in, so usually friends and relatives would help the mom nurse the baby. R.W. Felkin actually documented a C-section that he witnessed in Uganda. To him, it was a
you see a common theme here, right? What did she say? This guy, this white man, is the one who, guess what, documented the C-section in Uganda. Meaning the Ugandans, right, would not, or should I say the Bagandans, right, really, would not have even been able to have this information out here because they wouldn't have codified it. So as we see, there's still a very common theme. Dwight man came to Uganda and codified things, documented things.
The baby survived, the mothers recovered well, and they were given herbal treatments to promote wound healing. Infection, shock, and excessive blood loss were pretty uncommon. The most reported problem was that it took longer for milk to come in, so usually...
Yeah, Jeanette, I don't know if you know that that's not against what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying, right? They didn't codify things. If you don't codify things, you only want specialists instead of teaching it to everyone, aka galvanizing a culture. That's exactly what I'm saying, right? It says no cause of the problem with Africa. They only had one special in everything, in writing, in medicine, in science. That's the point that I'm making here, Jeanette. There was no culture that allowed that to seep into the rest of the community. That's literally what I'm saying.
Friends and relatives would help the mom nurse the baby. R.W. Felkin actually documented a C-section that he witnessed in Uganda. To him, it was a marvel that needed to be spread to the rest of the world. And it was. This is Habar Ndema. Follow me if you want to learn more about African politics and pop culture.
But of course, who takes the credit for inventing cesarean operation? Who takes the credit?
Who takes the credit is the person that writes it down first. Are you insane? First of all, right, the C-section is called the cesarean, right, after Caesar, aka ancient Roman times, right? Ugandans performing it for a couple of 100 years ain't the same as 1,000 years in ancient Rome, right? It's called cesarean section for a reason. Low. It's been practiced by the Romans, but that's not really the point here, right? The point is the Africans love to cope. The Africans don't like to understand that they didn't galvanize a culture that allowed them to succeed.
Would have actually been useful to the African people. Oh my goodness, I cannot believe I popped up for 9 minutes straight. I am so sorry, guys. That wasn't the plan, but I really needed to get that out of my chest. Please forgive me. Now, I'm just going to let the rest of the clip play on its own without it being interrupted. Thank you very much for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next one. And once again, I'm so sorry. Bye. I'll see you guys in the comment section.
A number of comments have objected to you using the general term the West, and they want you to be more specific because there is no monolithic block called the West. It is an unfair
things. Then you're like, whoa, what West are you talking about exactly? Who do you mean by the West? The way you people tell the story, people like Douglas Murray or Jordan Peterson or Sam Harris or Richard Dawkins or Hitchens, Chris.
Yeah, so Caesar, what's good? What's good, man? Good.
Nothing much, man. You know, I hear what you're saying. I kind of agree. I kind of disagree on some points. I think the main thing is when you want to find out what the problem is, I think you have to go to the source. I think the biggest issue, without talking about any other thing that happened in Africa, the biggest issue we had is when the Ndocha, when they came to our lands, We saw these white people, right, that didn't look like anything else we'd ever seen before. We didn't think about, there was no sense of like maybe we should team up, or whatever teams we built weren't big enough, and we also did not share knowledge among each other, at least not enough to realize that what we were trading for was useless, because we didn't even really get rich off the slave trade. Like, if you think about it, the slave trade was an L for us. We didn't even get rich off it. We didn't even get sufficient weapons off it. So I think that was the biggest crime. We didn't have guns. We didn't have gunpowder. When they came, we didn't respond correctly. Our groups were not big enough. To me, that's the biggest issue. Everything else is kind of like, it's secondary. Or even it's kind of tainted, because that's the real issue. You're attacking another issue, but that's the real issue. That's my own perspective on things.
Okay, shout out. Don't know if you want to come in yet, Ike.
Yeah, I just am I coming in clearly? I'm in a dusty West African internet zone, whatever. But shout out to Brian. It's been a while.
Hey, how you doing?
And hey, shout out to Caesar. I know you think I troll you, but not really. Anyways, I just wanted to mention something about this knowledge thing, this tacit knowledge, intrinsic knowledge that is in you versus the codification, right? Just to restate the point in a particular type of way. We all exist in, not to get too abstract and funny, but we all exist in this universe whereby, none of us created these instruments that we use, like by our eyes, our senses, all this stuff, right? Our instincts and all these other kinds of things. We're all kind of in tune to it. So much so that if you take a puppy, okay, and you put it on a block, let's say the block is 2 inches off the ground. Shout out to our American people out there, don't know how high that is, okay? Or let's say 50 centimeters for those other people, or those other dusties. The puppy will jump down from that, will come down from it, okay? If you put that puppy something on a tabletop, they'll go to the edge, they'll look down, and they'll be like, nope, I'm not going to fall down from that, okay? The puppy, this is a freaking puppy, right? They know that there's going to be an increased damage to them with the increased height. They have a sense for their mass and then this distance, okay? But until you actually do experimentation and then write down that your potential energy is going to, is going to convert to kinetic energy, and that the increase of the height actually increases your potential energy, or blah, 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 that kind of thing. Either does it increase linearly or does it increase in an exponential way? Then you can't really say that you have knowledge on a civilizational level, because you can't even have knowledge that I can communicate with you, Caesar. How can I tell you, Caesar, what it means? So let's say Caesar throws a stone at a piece of glass and it doesn't break. Caesar doesn't have to be a genius, okay? Caesar could have been born in the forest of Oweri or whatever, right? He knows he picks up the stone and he throws it faster, right? And it'll work. But how much faster and how much energy is produced, it codified in some equation, is the missing link, right? Because without that, you cannot communicate to Caesar. Cannot tell his children, hey, the stone needs to be 5x big, whatever Caesar chooses to measure the stone by, and you need to throw it from this distance, and if you increase it by this distance, here's the equation. Then boom, now you got stuff going. As Jeanette said before, you can have this kind of intuitive genius people, like Caesar, for example, that can understand things. They see things, and and these people have always existed. It's not like, oh, Western civilization is what created intuitives. No, people have always been people. So they can see things, they can understand things from a conceptual level. But until you write it down, it's just going to die with you. You may have you may select a few kids that are also kind of intuitive and can understand certain things, and those will be your apprentices. But unless you write it down, that practice will die with you. So again, just to kind of repeat, even a puppy understands potential energy and kinetic energy, understands that, hey, the higher the height, there's going to be exponential damage, right? Half mv squared is the equation, right? Or, in terms of throwing something faster for kinetic energy. But everybody understands that, but nobody, until you write down m half mv squared is kinetic energy, and then it can be spread to any idiot anywhere, can just copy that and know, okay, mass, velocity, okay, square, boom, That's it. Until you do that, you're never going to get anywhere. Again, just restating the point about codification, how important it is. I'll shut up.
Yep, 100%, 100%. Brian, I don't know. I want to bring you in, and you can tell us a little bit about your street and how on your neck of the African empires you guys were doing it.
What are you talking about?
Go ahead. Give us your interpretation of what you've heard and what you think.
My interpretation is basically it's pretty much interesting. One thing I don't like what we do is we make a generalization of the whole entire African continent and all African cultures as being somehow the same, which is not. A good example of that, if you look at the Americas, there was a difference between, let's say, empires like the Mayans and the Aztecs and the Toltecs and the Olmecs versus tribes in the Amazon, or like the Lakota or Apache, or I have friends who are Comanche tribes in the North in the United States. Big difference. Having said that, I wonder, with African education, and I think there's a lot of tribalism that goes on where we're not, or people throughout the African continent are not taught about other African cultures within the African continent that did have a writing system, that did focus on mathematics, that did have universities. Every time I encounter Africans in regards to that, besides those who live in those said regions, they're pretty much ignorant and they have no clue. However, among African Americans in the United States, weirdly, this is almost common knowledge. Like, for example, I was debating with Caesar to a certain degree. He's thinking that they only taught, let's say, the Songhai Empire and the Mali Empire, Islam. But if we go to the Library of Congress, that's not true. It wasn't only about Islam. Actually, they were a lot more liberal in comparison to what has developed in our timeline. Sometimes we need to separate timelines and look at the history for what it was. I mean, yes, there were situations that happened. Let's say in Timbuktu, they was talking about philosophy. They was reading about Aristotle and Caesar and all that type of stuff. In a lot of Islamic cultures now, that's haram. They mathematics, medicine, how to incorporate pagans in Islamic society. They were looking at medicinal plants and stuff like that, and seeing that they do have studying whether they do have benefits as far as health and all that type of stuff. It's, to me, that's a hell of an example of Africans, despite them being Islamic. Not all of them was pretty much studies of Islam. We were actually doing what we consider what modern people are doing, and also they were studying astronomy, which I have a lot of interest in astronomy because I'm really into the space program and all that type of stuff. It was pretty amazing what these people were studying during that time, and they also had trade. I'm gonna just say that with Europe, especially along the Swahili coast, with China. They did, traded, on some of them even traveled to different regions in the world. I remember reading about a Fulani blogger, and he talked about certain Fulanis who lived in Andalusia after Queen Isabella kicked them out of Spain and came back and brought back this kind of like this telescope type of thing. I think I posted that a long time ago. You probably didn't read it, Queso. And and to this day, among the people, I think, who lived in northern Nigeria, especially among the educated people among the houses, they were fascinated by that instrument. That was sort of like a telescope of some sort, or some type of, like a GPS system. So I think what we need to do is look at the good things that these cultures did in the past, despite their religious beliefs. We have to get that prejudice out of our mind. And detribalize ourselves. Because what I think was going on, it's kind of like I noticed with Africans. It's like competing against, thank you, Astrolabe, thank you. We are kind of like we're looking at what's going on now, but not looking at what happened before. And I think the problem is it's a whole lot of tribalism, my culture, my country versus your country. You don't, you know better than me type of thing going on. And I think that pretty much is a disservice, and it's not improving on our mindset.
So Brian, so here's what I think. I genuinely believe this. That book by Jared Diamond, I forget what it's called at this moment. Jared Diamond. What's the book he wrote? Okay, well, he wrote a really great book about this. This is my belief. I truly believe this. Even those Islamic civilizations in Africa, I think the only reason why we even know about them is because of their contact with the other parts of the Islamic world, right? So all this information we have about them, I genuinely believe is because those guys documented some stuff, right? And that's why we can access that information. I think the vast majority of Africa, because of that Sahara Desert, this is how I judge Africa, at least. Because of that Sahara Desert, there was a lack of communication. So while the rest of the world, right, was able to trade ideas and advance even cultural technology, which is this need for, writing things down, this advanced version of writing things down, because every single person Africa is also very big and low density. So everyone's doing their own thing. And I think it's just that the fact that we weren't able to trade ideas with the rest of the world. I think that's the real reason why we don't really know much about what was going on. And even when you read about it, it's limited. Except for Islamic civilizations that were all in the desert, by the way, that were able to communicate a little bit. And we have some information about them because that's what the Saudis wrote about, right? Not the
Saudis. It was mostly because the Saudis would pretty much didn't really have much.
Or the Persians, or I don't know, the Turks.
Mostly. Because here's the thing. Even within the African continent, right, among the desert kingdoms at the time, they traded with the people along the forest belt. They did. That's a very, very known fact in regards to getting certain products. They traded among the people from the forest belt.
They traded, but it was just so limited. I mean,
it wasn't limited. It wasn't limited. No, that's how.
Look.
Go ahead, Christina.
Powder got from China to Europe because of that trade network. There's a reason why it didn't get to Igboland or Zimbabwe. That's all that is, right? It's not like I
have to disagree with you on that one because
why do you think
they found evidence of Swahili traders going as far as the Great Zimbabwe, and Great Zimbabwe having Chinese products, as far as what archaeologists.
Why do you think the rest of the world had gunpowder and we didn't? Did they have a blockade?
The rest of the world did not have gunpowder. They didn't have gunpowder in Americas. China, even though the Chinese did invent the rocket, they didn't really have gunpowder. It was until the Western countries pretty much took the Chinese idea, what they had for rockets, and created gunpowder. The rest of the world didn't have gunpowder until later on.
When I mean the rest of the world, I assume we know the Americas are out of it because obviously they didn't have contact with us, right? We're talking about the rest of the world. I'm talking about that Euro-Asian plate. That's really what I'm talking about.
What I'm saying is it was mostly in one region that had gunpowder. The Indians didn't invent gunpowder, nor did the Chinese. Like I said, even though they invented the rocket, but they didn't have gunpowder. It was, they just improved on that weaponry in Western Europe. That's where gunpowder. If we're talking about guns, that's where that came from. Actually, one African empire that did it, that's Kono Bono. They didn't invent gunpowder, but they did trade guns and firearms and stuff like that. A lot of countries throughout the world traded.
The guns they got were like fifth rate. Like they were at the end of the.
But having said this, what I'm saying is we need to learn how to detribalize our minds and look at things. Other cultures within the African continent without our own prejudices of today, and looked at the things with these civilizations, and I'm talking about specifically in the Sahel region, got right because they existed for over 700 years.
I think people give them way too much credit. I don't see they didn't really do anything.
Well, let's say they had education, they had universities.
Oh, boo-hoo. Let me tell you something. Most of these African civilizations, I don't.
Let's see. They had astronomy. They like.
We all had astronomy.
No, they did. And the difference is they'd written it down. They jotted it down. If you look at the Library of Congress, you would find that. They also
when the white man came, the real everything fake went away.
Let me finish, young man. I'm older than you.
Old.
God. Like I said, they had astronomy. They were looking at medicines. They was looking at medicinal products to see whether they'd be able to heal. Have healing properties. They did many interesting things that we need to look at and reevaluate ourselves. We could evaluate it as far as looking at it critically, or give them props for what they did.
The real reason why I don't give them too many props is because, one, they didn't really do much, right? When the white man came, everything fake went away, right? So all this bullshit they was doing, whatever bullshit they was doing, it wasn't enough to fight the white man, right? So I don't give them credit.
Well, actually, they
another thing. Here's the main thing.
Actually, the civilization went down during the Moroccan War. That's when that civilization deteriorated. That's when I hate to say that the more dusty civilizations from the south filled in that vacuum. It's just like kind of like
Moroccans for the reason why all these
let me finish, sir. The reason why I say dusty is because I consider it almost as far as with the Roman Empire. When the dusties from the other little tribes came along, that's when things went downhill and they had to create the Western.
So why didn't they have gunpowder if they were trading so fairly with the rest of the world and they were so advanced, had everything? Why didn't they have gunpowder?
Gunpowder don't make up a whole civilization, Caesar.
That's the most important innovation.
That moment, they didn't make up the whole civilization.
That was the most important.
Gunpowder wasn't widely traded as well too at that time.
See, look, let me tell you something. These civilizations, they didn't stand the test of time. I don't give them credit, and one reason why I don't think we need.
Well, a lot of civilizations.
Let me finish.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing, Caesar. Civilizations go and fall all the time. We could see that throughout history. Do the Canaanites still exist? No.
So Brian, let me.
Babylonians still exist.
Brian, let me finish. The reason why.
Let me go on. Even though there's people of Aztec ancestry all over Mexico, but they do not rule. They got conquered.
Okay, so Brian, look, the reason why I don't give them, you gotta let me finish, by the way. The reason why I don't give them credit is, look, they didn't do anything special. They really didn't. Nothing more special than any average dusty African civilization, really. Oh, they did astronomy, but they couldn't defend themselves from outsiders. That's the number one thing a nation does, buddy. But here's the second thing. The most important thing. A lot of Africans, and I do think there's let me not blame outsiders. There's this idea that some Africans have that the only reason why we had any type of civilization is due to this Islamic influence. It's very strange. And then you have some people who give credit to the Christians in Ethiopia. And I think Africans need to realize that we had civilizations and we had technology outside of these foreign influences. Some Africans from the other stream the other day, you could tell they literally said, look, before Islam, we were running around naked in forests. I mean, this is not true. We have nations in Africa without Islam, without Christianity, and a lot of
Islam and Christianity is a Middle Eastern religion. That's like saying that Europeans were not civilized before Christianity.
So a lot of
Christianity started, as we know, in Islam started in the Middle East, and then it reached various different areas of the world. I mean, then the Roman Empire, and then from the Roman Empire, the periphery nations. So are we going to say that the British was not civilized? Some people might say civilized before Christianity.
Bro, there's Africans, Muslims the other day on the stream talking like that. They truly believe this. So they think, I'm not giving African Muslims credit. Look, African Muslims, I mean, they did some things, but again, they didn't do anything special that makes them better than any other civilization. And I'm not going to put them on a pedestal, which is what you guys do.
It's not putting them on a pedestal. It's seeing what they've done right.
Maybe
I look at things as far as organizations. I look at things in regards to having peace in the land, education. They actually written down things.
Brian, let me tell you something.
Let me finish, sir. They have written down things that had really had an importance, especially in the Islamic world at the time. So it's kind of like, from my perspective, Civilizations come and go, but I look at things and have a critical mind. Sometimes we have to develop a critical mind as we get older and see what they did right and see what they did wrong, and then you apply it towards now.
Brian, you and I are both Americans. Let me tell you something. Even though we may seem like we disagree on this, I know the perspective you're coming from, right? These Africans are not coming from that perspective. It's completely different. You're looking at a very
what I'm looking at it.
You're trying to. Let me finish. You're not pedestalizing it, and I actually do believe you. I don't think you're pedestalizing it. But what you don't realize is these Africans are, and that's the difference. That's a big difference. I believe in good faith. You're not pedestalizing it because I kind of understand American culture or whatever. What do you do? But these Africans, they're pedestalizing. They truly believe that without Islam, hey, Africa would be nothing. Which I that's why I don't want to give them any credit. When I give other civilizations credit, to me, it's being unbiased. Because what do I gain from saying Zimbabwe was a great civilization? I'm not from Zimbabwe. I'm being unbiased. But I see what you're saying. Zimbabwe credit, by the way. They won't even give Zimbabwe credit. They only give, Songhai Empire, Mansa Musa. That's all they talk. It's strange. And you start questioning them. So do you think Africans can build a civilization without Islam? They'll tell you no.
Okay, so can you give me an example of relevant African civilizations that weren't Haramic?
Hold on for 1 second, okay? So all civilization is relevant. It's just like saying that, listen what I'm saying, brother. Listen what I'm saying. So Christianity in Europe is not a European religion. It's not. It's a religion based.
They owned it.
Based in the Middle East. Period.
Sure, but they
that's the foundation where it started off.
Yeah,
it started off in the Middle East, and then it spread to Europe. Some people say Saint Paul, Paul or whatnot, but it's not. Even white people will tell you that. If you talk to white pagans or neo pagans these days, especially in the United States and Europe, and if you look at like for example, like the when we look at these Marvel comics and Thor and all that, those come from Norse gods. Even if you talk to a person from Norway, they're like saying Christianity is not our religion. And a lot of British will say Christianity is not our religion. They were forced into that religion.
Right.
Okay. Sure. So the whole thing of a single God came from the Middle East. Otherwise, everybody back in the past believed in multiple different gods. The Roman Empire had multiple gods. The planets we name, where they come from? Not out of nowhere. They came from Roman gods. On our space mission, we're about to send what they call Artemis. Okay, that comes from Roman god. The days of the week, you could go on and on and on. A lot of our myths in the United States come from the old religions.
That's true.
So if you look at things, like I said, we have to look at motherfucking shit critically.
Wait, hang on, Brian. I want to correct you, right? This whole one God concept doesn't come from Middle East, right? Even my Dusty tribes in Kenya.
Right. I know that your tribe and Oromos, and I think in Ethiopia, I believe. They did practice a single god, and also the Dinka.
Dinka as well. Also, okay, nice, and also the Maasai, but then the Maasai god is.
But here's the fact. Here's the fact. The majority of the world, okay, at one time, whether it be the gods of the forest in the Amazon rainforest, Aztecatl, in Mexico, Shanghai. Shango, among the Yoruba, and and a lot of the belief systems and philosophies, in Asia and India to this day, Hinduism. Everyone used to worship multiple different deities.
Yeah, man. I feel like the whole monotheism thing is it's so complicated because even though Odinala, right, the Igbo religion, it's polytheistic, right? However, it's weird because it's similar to Christianity, this idea that, yes, there's multiple gods, but like this one God is like also all of those gods are like make up that God. Like you could talk about all those little gods are almost thought of as aspects of the actual God Chukwu. And I don't know if the Yoruba religion is the same. And I feel like even in Christianity, like especially Catholics, like they try to accommodate the polytheists. Oh, they have like three, what is it called? The Father, the Holy Spirit, and Jesus, right? The Son.
The Trinity, yeah.
And these are almost like three different aspects of the same thing. It's almost a way of accommodating this polytheistic kind of, and then they even have saints. So they try to accommodate the polytheist, and those saints and those little Trinity people are almost like aspects of God, but it's all God. So the whole monotheism, polytheism thing, I feel like society just picks what they are depending on what's more, suitable at that moment. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree with you on that in regards to the religions and stuff like that. And and as time went on, it evolved, and they did have to appease the pagans at the time. That's why we have all these damn holidays like Christmas and Thanksgiving, and not Thanksgiving, and Easter, which what do the rabbit have anything to do with Jesus? And that has to do with the goddess. The rabbit represent fertility among the Norse and stuff like that. And the Easter egg hunts in churches and all that shit.
The pantheism thing, and even in the Bible, right? There are many places where God is talking about us and we and allowing room for other gods, even in the commandments when he says, and I think it's fairly clear when he says, I'm the Lord your God, you shall have no other gods before me. He didn't say I'm the only God, right? I mean, he said you shall have no other gods before me. It's like me coming in and say, hey, I'm the G, you should have no other G's before me. Like, you would assume God would know if there were other gods or not. And he's here saying, hey, you can have other gods, but I'm the number one, right? And there are many other places in the Bible where this type of inference about God acknowledging other gods, but he's saying I'm the top, is kind of can be inferred, right? So just wanted to throw that in as I heard you guys saying that.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
But one thing is that people really believe, like, if you have multiple gods, you're kind of like animal or something.
No, but Caesar, I agree with what Tankybot is saying here, right? Because the overwhelming evidence is that monotheism is older. So logically, this is my logic, right? Listen, my tribe, we create our God. We just create one God, right? Hey, that same thing you can use in Hinduism, right? Our family, our clan, our tribe, we create one God. But then we realize there's other families, other tribes, other clans, they also have their God. So then, we just allow all the gods to exist, and, we create a religion around that, which encompasses the different gods systems. But in reality, there was more or less probably one God created by one random dusty clan somewhere. Then they integrate with the other clans around, and that's how the polytheism probably takes root, etc.
Monotheism, it would seem, and this is a hypothesis, I've always had this hypothesis that it's more of a political move, right? So you were just talking about this tribe has this God, this tribe has this God, this tribe has this God. And hey, it makes sense that I come through and I say, hey, my God is on top. It's not saying that, or the extreme version of, hey, your gods don't even exist. It's just mine and one. And we just kind of, there are many effects. Again, hypothesis, okay? I'm not saying this is true. There are many effects in the way of peoples, in the way they organize themselves, if they believe in this kind of unitary or Catholic mean universal way of looking at things. Some even argue that it affected science, and it affects the kind of the notion, or the notion of truth, one truth, blah, blah, blah. But I just wanted to say that I think it is a political move, right, to say there is one God, because then you're centralizing power. It's a centralizing move, I think.
That's a very good point, and I agree with you on that. I really agree with you on that. But another thing that religions try to do is, like, I know in Christianity they have like 100 different names for God, right? So the African equivalent I'm thinking is like, okay, Chukwu is the Igbo god, but Oluwa, I don't know the rest. Oluwa is the Yoruba god. Imagine we say, look, we're going to integrate into one group. There's multiple names for God. You can call him Chukwu, you can call him Oluwa. Instead of saying one's better than the other, or one's supreme, maybe that'll cause a fight. We can say, look, these names are interchangeable. It's the same person though, you know. Or I think I don't know who the thunder god is in Yoruba land, but I know in Igbo land it's Amadioha. So
isn't it Shango?
Yeah, there you go. So we say, look, these are the same people, you know, different names, but it's the same person, guys. And then when you pray, you use them interchangeably. That's kind of another way of like merging the two, which I think Christianity does. I don't know if other religions do this.
Well, Christians say that there's Jehovah Jireh, Jehovah Nisi, you know, the provider, all this kind of stuff.
That is something
right?
Americans. That is something Americans. The baptism, like that is something Americans. That has nothing to do with Europe.
What are you talking about? Snake man.
I just wanted to say it's a problem with Caesar's ideas, and there's something that maybe non-religious people don't really care about, but when it comes about religious people, is all religion have some fundamental culture to them. Basically, most religions are tied to the land or to the cultures they practice. So if you try to say, let's harmonize all gods, it's possible, but it's not as easy as you think if you keep the interest of the religious people if you go after that.
One quick thing to add here to this whole kind of political move, and with regards to Islam, you see, obviously Muhammad studied the Jews, right? He was a fan of them, obviously, right? But one of the things that Muhammad did when he said, you know, everyone is pretty much a Muslim, right? That when you convert, you're not really converting, you're just reverting. That's another way to be like, hey, look, basically what I'm saying is I'm talking about centralization or being foundational, saying that my thing subsumes everything else. That look, everyone is born submitting to God, and my thing is submitting to God. Like, even if you don't know that you're a Muslim, right? Again, a political move that kind of subsumes everything, where it's like, oh, don't like my thing just could, oh, you were born this way, or you're born, it all means the same thing. Islam started with Adam, right? That kind of a thing that they say, right? I think it's a brilliant thing that Muhammad did, right? And it's not super brilliant. It just makes sense politically that to say, hey, stop arguing about where stuff started from or whatever. No matter who you are, no matter what you think or whatever, I'm going to define my religion such that if you're a human being, then you belong to my religion. You just don't know it yet.
That is actually very good. The only problem with the Muhammad thing is, after Muhammad died, there's this notion of you are all Muslims, you just don't know it. Let us say so. There were a lot of caliphs, especially after the Rashidun, who just didn't care. Just want to say, like what Muhammad did was intelligent, but the problem once again, and that is more a society human problem is, can you keep the same energy over multiple generations?
Looks like they're doing a good job of it. It's still here.
I mean, the religion is still here. I mean, the same energy in form of you're all Muslims, and even if you're a Christian, you're quote unquote a Muslim, aka submitting to God. You just don't know the right way. Basically, it's kind of energy.
I always wondered about the origin of Islam, and I've started reading more about the Edibionite Christians in the past, and I have a feeling, along with the Jews, they contributed to Islam, along with Muhammad's wife, uncle, who was also Christian, I think, contributed to his ideas.
Yeah, now let me ask you guys a question, right? Because always you got running around in circles and avoiding the big question. So why didn't you, Dusty Africoids, galvanize your Dusty religions, culture, and create a civilization? There's no such thing as African civilization. There is a Western civilization, but there's no African one.
Kaizo, so my answer is this. I think that you sound like I'm coping. I hope I'm not coping. But look, so here's the thing. I think that like it takes every civilization needs to have an edge to beat another civilization. I'm going to guess that no African civilization that outside of the ones that were exposed to the, Islam, right, and Christianity, they weren't able to get an edge where they were able to build a large empire as large as what we saw maybe in Europe and in China. So everyone was developing. Maybe you could have conquered. Look at the Benin Empire. They tried. Aro Confederacy, Henry Kingdom, the Zulus. Everybody did their thing, but they're all small in nature because they were not able to get such a big edge. Like, oh, we have bombs. You guys have sticks. Now I can conquer half the continent. And that's what I think. No one was able to get a big old edge over each other. Maybe if one guy had access to the outsiders and they gave us guns, or I don't know, maybe that would have happened. That's what I think. Because the Ethiopians, they were able to do something with outsiders and colonize the rest of Ethiopia, the Amharics, right? So, yeah.
Outsiders, edge, good point. This idea of basically things will develop when there's competition, not to put it in that very low level way, right? But competition, contact, you get beaten over the head, you learn how to put on a helmet, you come back, maybe you get stabbed and then you come back and you wear a shield. This happened in the Mediterranean. Why? Because it's a freaking body of water that people can flow. The Phoenicians kill these people. The Phoenicians are great at building boats, right? These other people are great at this. The Greeks are great at that. The Egyptians are good at this. The Romans are good at that, right? And they're constantly fighting, killing, and conquering each other, okay? And at the same time, passing the football of knowledge from one to the other. We all know the Muslims held Aristotle for a while Europe was in the Dark Ages and all that kind of stuff, right? So I think that this contact thing is important. The Mediterranean, why it's kind of like the seat of civilization, it's not surprising. You just look at a map and you're like, oh, here's this body of water you can just skate through, okay? And you can be in one type of place, another type of place, another type of place. These people are constantly trading and killing each other, conquering and reconquering each other, and hence, and also passing that football around. The football is, okay, some stuff came from Jerusalem, some stuff came from Athens, right? But the whole kind of the codified aspect of it, which is important, right? So the written aspect, the codified aspect get passed from place to place, iron sharpening iron, people getting sharper with their things. I think the Mediterranean Sea is a huge part of this whole, what we call human civilization, right? And the last person to catch the ball and run with it was, quote unquote, the West. They caught it, they built those ships, they went everywhere and beat everyone over the head with it, and no one else was ready. Again, a hypothesis, but I think it's in line with what Caesar was saying regarding somebody getting an edge as a result mainly of contact with other people. The maximal amount of this happened in the Mediterranean because of that ocean or that sea.
That is pretty much interesting what you said, but I'm gonna go throw a little pushback on certain things. You see, what was your question again, Case? I just want to and then I'll just give you my input again.
How come there's such a thing as Western civilization, but there's no such thing as African or African-related civilization?
That's a very good question because, as with both Caesar and also Ike was talking about in regards to the Mediterranean and all that type of stuff, and I think it has a lot to do with, and this is my opinion, prejudice, because even other cultures that is not affiliated with the Mediterranean, we have something in this part of the world called Mesoamerica civilization. They didn't really have any contact. I'm talking about racially, with according to what I see, with other civilizations, but their own, and it was internal. Mesoamerican civilization. They talk about the Inca civilization. They even talk about, I wouldn't call it a dusty civilization, several dusty civilization in Oceania. I think in Palau or something like that, or Oceania civilization. I mean, I think the root of that is to do with racism. And the root of that is not, as Africans are not taking the narrative of their own culture, of their own history, and the value of it.
Very good. I don't want to monopolize it. Just one quick thing here about that competition thing. When I said competition, I was like, hey, I don't want to keep it at that low level. But then when I look at Jeanette's comment, I want to just make sure I clarify that, yes, it's not competition, right? It's what is called anti-fragility. In other words, there are systems such as the human system and the ecosystem that if you leave them alone, they die. What they need, what does that mean? That means that your muscles atrophy if you don't stress it. Your bones atrophy if you don't stress it. Relationships die if you don't, do something with them, right? Your brain cells, everything that's biological, as a matter of fact, complex systems such as the economy as well, hence the kind of a free market, decentralized type of argument, blah, blah, blah. But we see this thing whereby things need to get shaken up. They need to be stressed in order for them to develop. And these things tend to be biological systems, ecosystems, and the whole of evolution works that way. So it's not just simple competition, but it does have to do with this thing called anti-fragility, meaning that there's some things are fragile, meaning you don't want to shake them. Some things are robust, meaning it doesn't matter, it's a rock, you can shake it or not. And then there's this strange thing where if you don't shake it, it actually dies. And civilizations and human beings are like that. You can just test it out with your own body, right? We know that we need to go out there and shake things up, otherwise we actually atrophy.
Okay, shout out.
Nilo, do you want to say something?
Yeah, I was going to ask Brian, what's the difference between a kingdom and a civilization, or an empire and a civilization?
Oh, there's a lot of big differences between the two.
Like what?
Well, you need a definition for it.
No, I just asked what's the difference.
From my point of view, a civilization, as far as what, civilization could be anything.
That's the thing. So there is no difference.
I'm not going to take the Webster Dictionary definition of it. It could be of one's mind. It could be material culture. People might consider material culture for building things and creating some sort of gross economy and trading with other groups, and as being a civilization. Other people might have a different point of view of a civilization, an act of kindness. Even certain tribes, I remember, in Americas that don't have a curse word in their language. They have a civilized mindset. So it depends on what you interpret as being a civilization. Or, kingdom is just a kingdom. It's just my name.
So there is no practical difference, is what you're saying.
Pretty much, really.
So Keizo's question is retarded then. And you guys are just going along with
Bibi, how about you give us
not really, Abi. Maybe you didn't understand the point, right? What I'm saying is that it's such a thing as so-called Western civilization, right? This encompasses the scientific discovery of the scientific method. It talks about all the stuff that's come out of it. There is no equivalent of African.
Well, no. Okay. Let me go through this. I love like questions.
Okay, but by the same token, you guys are using different meanings for civilization, because when Brian says civilization, he named like some Aztec civilization in the middle of nowhere, some Oceanian civilization in the middle of nowhere. So how can those two also be civilization?
In dictionary terms, they consider it that. And when I studied in school, let me just finish. Let me finish in 1 second. Okay, they considered those kingdoms as civilizations. That's what I've been growing up thinking. But I had.
So Keizo, what is the civilization then?
They are civilization. That's not the point. That's why I said Western. I didn't say English. I didn't say German. I didn't say Spanish. I said Western.
And can I ask a question, Keizo?
African. Right?
So your question is, why didn't Africa create? Wait. You see how retarded this question is? It's not why didn't Africa create a civilization? It's why didn't Africa create the Western civilization? By that,
Abi and Keizo, you guys are TI guys, definition guys.
Go ahead, go at it, guys. Go at it.
Yeah, there's no need to be strange with it. Basically, you define certain parameters. It would seem. Let me just state a couple of things. Keizo is saying, hey, Western civilization. Okay, now that thing has a temporal aspect in it, and a transtemporal and a translocation aspect. So it's not just one kingdom; it's a sphere of influence that crosses across time and space, and people seem to identify themselves with it, right? So somebody from some past time in some remote location says Western civilization, and right now in the UN, somebody talking about Western civilization, right? So it's actually an influence. It's almost like a level of software. Like if we start, so there's one dimension is that it's transtemporal, and it has to be also trans-time. I'm sure that that could be fine-tuned, okay? And then also it has to be, if a village and then a town and then a kingdom, blah blah blah, it needs to be bigger than that in that kind of a simple form. But in the way that we talk about it today, geopolitically, if I just go geopolitical for a second, the West is a sphere of influence in the sense that Japan is Western, but it's not European, okay? And Russia is European, but it's not Western, right? So it's about the sphere of influence. It's about these people that say, hey, we're together in this particular kind of a thing, okay? Now, I'm not putting the definitive word on it. I'm just saying, look, we can lay out these parameters like this, like that says such things as it has to be something that goes across time. It has to have a sphere of influence that people identify with, and so on and so forth, without acting like we don't know what it means when somebody says Western civilization, right?
Okay, but Ike, you already answered the question. I just want a confirmation. Does Russia count to that Western civilization you're talking about? Kaiser, there's a question for you.
Wait, what's the question?
Does Russia count to that Western civilization talking about?
It's taken, parts from it, right? It's been influenced by it, but it's not really part of that that so-called sphere of influence, as Ike said.
Okay, so then I know that what you're talking about is not European-ish culture.
It's Euro-Asian, really. Russia.
No, because Russia did all the things it did, like all the other European country, married into, had nobility, married into it, converted to some Christian faith, had a lot of. The difference is that in the time of World War I, World War II, basically in the height of colonialism, there's a difference. Like there's a notion of Western civilization, aka the man that left his homeland and went somewhere else. That's why I asked if Russia counts it, because Russia did something. Russia is always a Slavic culture.
Just before we go into that whole Russia versus the West, my question is this, right?
I'm not versus the West. I'm very short. And there's a specific time, from this time on, it's Western civilization. Everything that happened before that influenced and doesn't matter. It's a specific time, that is around the colonial era. That's why when we call Western civilization, we, like I said, influence. Basically, the European nation who had some kind of outside European influence, and America just is thrown into it because it's so culturally close, and it's now the new hegemons that can have influence outside their core lands, the homeland. So I just wanted to understand what you understand of Western civilization, because when we go to Nilotis' question, is China an empire or is China a civilization?
Civilization.
Well, okay, look, China is big enough and has enough power and all that stuff. Okay, look, let me make my question really simple, right? You Africans, no one thinks of Africa as a civilization or anything that resembles
because it never was. It never was, because if we go after what I think human civilization, like when we call West Africa, we know there's some kind of West African civilization because of the river Niger that connect all these kingdoms together. There were big empires, small empires. When one fall and new rose up, it took knowledge from the past and implemented in the new era. That is something. The problem is there's something like Nile civilization. That's basically all the kingdoms and empires that were on the Nile. The problem is Africa is so damn big. If you go for an influence, it's too damn big.
There's something called Asian civilization. Africa is just a landmass, you retard. Like, bro, these guys act like we Africans have been the same people for thousands of generations. We've interacted with one another for thousands of
Actually, yeah,
generations.
there is. Why, Abby, you can't ask a question and answer it in the wrong way. It's called the Eastern civilization. Yes, it actually exists.
Well, what is
China,
the Eastern
India,
civilization?
Tibet, and
But
that's
it's not the
literally what I'm
same.
saying. Hang on, Abby. I'm
It's
one
not
second,
the same,
man.
Kaiser.
The point I mentioned, right? And you know,
Okay, that's the equivalent of the.
One second. There's no
Kenzo,
African.
just calm down for a second. Okay, we know you're gonna filibuster us. The Eastern civilization is only. Wait. Brian, hold up. Where does Asia start and end? Wait. Hold up. Where does you see what I mean? This guy's just filibustering.
Yeah, because
okay, well done. Let's clap for him. Wait. Where does that?
Don't make it an ego thing, Nyla. Because technically, in
no, it's not. Brian, hold up, Snake Man, hold up.
This guy.
Okay, Keizo, just keep quiet for a second. Where does Asia start and finish?
Who cares? I mean, that's not the relevant point.
It starts in the Middle East and then finish, I guess.
Yeah,
all the way to
okay,
I thought we already agreed that
so what
influence that was
transformed.
Yeah, go ahead. Look,
okay, so East Asian civilization is really like half. It's not even a quarter of the landmass of Asia. If we're going to go by that, okay, there's the Nilo Valley civilization. The rest of you don't matter. So by that logic, since the Nilo Valley civilization exists, then the whole of Africa is part of the civilization now, right?
Abby, you're not listening, actually. First of all, you're wrong. You said there's no Asian. Yes, it is. It's called the Eastern civilization. And the opposing term is Western. There is no equivalent of African or anything African related.
That's the point. Could you hold on?
My point is, right, let me tell you this, right?
You must, if it exists, you can explain it. What is the Eastern civilization?
We know what Eastern civilization is.
No, because from a European point, Eastern civilization means Russia and the Middle East. It doesn't mean Asia.
No, Eastern civilization, as it's defined, right? We're talking about China all the way to India, parts of Iran, etc., and all that stuff. All the knowledge, information.
Are you sure it's not called Eastern civilization?
I don't care. Look, think, man. I don't care if it's transversing.
But you bring it up. Why do you bring something up when you don't know what
it is? It's the other stuff other than the Euro-Asian, which is kind of centered in Moscow and Ukraine with the czars and whatnot. We know those guys. They have a civilization. They had a massive sphere of influence. A huge percentage of the world's landmass. That's them. But then there's this Chinese other thing, the slant eye thing, right? We know these. Why are we acting like we don't know?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, look, it is Eurasian stuff that's going on there. There's a Western civilization. Then there's clearly something called the Eastern civilization. Eastern philosophy is different. They have a different characteristic, art, etc. My point here is simple, Snake Man and Abby. Before you guys just start saying coping, simple. Habesha civilization never broke past anywhere. It didn't go anywhere. Maybe Yemen. That's it, right? There's no Habesha philosophy. There's no Habesha art going across and having any real sphere of influence across time. Same thing with so-called Songhai West African stuff. You guys did not create something that survived time and people can even refer to it. No one will tell you, African civilization, and get an idea. Even West African civilization, no one. These things don't even exist. That's the point.
Kaiser, we didn't have.
Hold on. Now we know. No.
Okay, look, Snake Man. This is where Snake Man. Hold up, 1 second. When did the term Eastern civilization even begin? It was in reference to the Eastern port that kept invading, quote unquote, Western Europe. So really, your civilization doesn't exist because you never had an encounter with Western civilization. That's it.
No, the problem is Kaiser is stupid again and plays those liberal games. Because when I asked him what is Eastern, he once again, he doesn't care about the past. Like he just is like Caesar when it comes to that. He cares about the now. And the problem is when I asked, okay, what is Eastern? Eastern civilization.
It's fine. It's there. I don't know what you.
Hold on. Eastern culture that is known as Eastern civilization is Oriental. That is the old word for it. As umbrella term for various culture, heritage of social norms, ethnic values, tradition, custom, belief system, political system. Yeah, basically everything that is located in what we call now Asia. It's not one collective thing. No. All. It's not Oriental. Orientals were Arabs too, like or Turks who live now in Europe, part of Europe. So basically, Eastern civilization is a mental term for everything east from Europe. Literally everything. It does not matter what it is.
Look, Snake Man. Look, the point is, you guys.
Thank you.
There's no Igbo, and
It's
that's
basically a landmass.
Snake
He's
Man.
basically describing a
Snake Man,
landmass.
according to
That's
this
what it
guy,
is.
according to Keizo, allegedly, the Iranians, the Chinese, all of these civilizations were part of the same aligning civilization, bro. This is the most retarded shit I've ever heard.
No, even the definition.
It's nothing
Even
to do
the
with
definition is not
It's
saying
about
that.
China, bro. It's about China.
No, it's not
India.
about China.
It's China and India, that region, not about anything Asia.
No,
This
did
is
you
very
not read
specific
the
term.
definition? Kaiser, did you not read
No, forget the
everything?
definition. Read into it. No, stop this.
You
Stop
brought
being
up the
ignorant, right?
definition. The
It's about
definition
China.
is
It's Chinese and Indian. Nothing to do with some Eastern,
go
east
up
of
to
Europe.
the definition. Go up to the definition.
Taoism, Chinese, Shinto, Taoism, Korean, Manchu,
It's
Hindu.
not, yeah, but it's
about
that is one
India
one thing.
over there. This guy.
Go up.
Look.
What is Kaiser? You cannot pull up a definition and be mad at the
Okay,
definition.
look.
This
is actually stupid. The point is simple. This, right? We can refer to these civilizations because they exist somehow. There's no such thing as African civilization because you guys were just so dusty. No one even can refer to a collective civilization. No, there's something written by some white man. Nobody knows it.
Kaiso. Okay, since you just throwing this all out. So, do you think that a civilization exists in Americas? Since they didn't have influence.
Hold on. Hold on, Brian. I'm literally on Wikipedia like him, and there's a term called African civilization. The term African civilization, also classic African civilization or African empires, a term generally referred to pre-colonized African kingdoms that the civilized usually idealize.
Snake Man, this is why I asked, can we define what a civilization is so we don't get confused? And say every little dusty empire is a civilization.
The term African civilization exists and it means pre-colonialized kingdoms who lived in Africa.
Exactly. And wait, hang on. Did I not come here? Hang on. Why are you just refusing to listen? I came here and actually expressed and said time, sphere of influence across time from then till now. That's the point I'm making here. You guys are just now focusing.
No. You made the terms that you made the terms.
I created definition. I came here and literally,
you
I
said
identified
that
the
definition doesn't exist. It literally does. It literally does.
Thing, man, right? You guys are acting obtuse. You're purposely acting obtuse.
If you want to make the argument,
I
should make
everyone. I mean, okay, so everyone understood what Ike was basically saying.
Yeah, but
the thing is, we can make the same arguments. Let me just say something.
God damn, this is why you monkeys never had civilization. One at a time, bro. Jesus fuck.
I mean, we can make the same argument since we're the global platform. I mean, do you consider the cultures in Americas to have a civilization case? So, in your
I don't care about the Americas, right?
No. We're talking about something global. You mentioned China, right? I live in its continent, so yeah, it fucking matters.
Okay, there's no sphere of influence of that civilization anymore. The point is, look, I literally.
I mean, but it's considered among scholars as being a civilization.
Okay, Brian, let me make it really clear for you.
Hold on a second. Let me help you for a second. Keizo, let me help you for a second. When Keizo says civilization, he's not using the academic term that everyone has a consensus on when it comes to civilization. He's using his own definition.
Like, why do we have to go to some book, talk about definitions? Oh, this person said that. Oh, I got to go to an anthropology book.
Because he brought up Wikipedia.
Jesus Christ.
Because when Keizo mentioned... No, Snake Man, one second. Because when Keizo mentioned civilization, Brian started then mentioning Oceania civilization, American civilization. So I asked you guys, are you guys even talking about the same thing? Can we at least come up with the definition first?
That was a great point, Habibi. But then I'm wondering, why did we not build from there? Why are we not going into 10,000 different... It's like, okay, what the hell?
Kaizo deflects. He brought up Wikipedia for a definition.
Oh my God.
That's the reason. I'm sorry, I know what Kaizo means. I know what you mean.
Kaizo, but on the same logic, what did Hindu civilization... What sphere of influence outside of the Indian continent, the subcontinent, did Hindu civilization have? Pretty much wherever their people live, that landmass is the only stretch that Hinduism actually controlled. And you could even argue it was conquered by the Mongols and so on from Persia coming inward. So really, you could argue that the Persians had a greater civilization than the Hindus.
But that's not the point. The point is right now, Kaiser trying to connect. That's a
Snake man, we're past that point, man.
Yeah, I know, but just try to understand where Kaiser comes from. He tries to connect something in the past with something right now.
Exactly. That is what I'm trying to do.
Do you see what I mean? I understand.
Okay, Kaiser, 1 second. What influence has Hinduism had on the world, if we're being honest? Like, what about your life today? Because Western influence has influence on all of us. Let's be honest.
I'll tell you. There's actually a lot. If you look at the philosophies from the West, postmodernism, as an example, which is actually the leading philosophical term from the West, that is heavily influenced by Buddhism and Hinduism. It's all about not having an absolute truth and actually refuting this materialistic aspect. You can Google it if you want, right? I'm answering his question. So the eastern side of the civilization, what they did, obviously, the philosophy has inculcated into the Western philosophical thought framework. And the West actually took a lot from the Buddhism, the Taoism, and then redefined it and then created the new modern wave feminism. All these movements are coming from that philosophical term. The structures from
postmodernism.
So
it's a late
wait. So postmodernism. Wait. Snake man, 1 second. So postmodernism is pretty much Judaism. What are you on about, bro?
No, postmodernism
is Western Judaism, bro.
No.
It was created by Yahoo Boys. What are you on about? So the Yahoo Boys it wasn't their own cultural influence that created postmodernism. It was Hinduism, something they never even had encounter with, that created postmodernism.
Okay, look. I can't teach you about how the Eastern philosophy integrated with the West in one stream, so I'll just leave that there. But anyways, we got new guys. We got Guardian and Al. So go ahead.
Kaiser, stay on one thing. Use definitions. No. Use your own terms. Don't do.
I'll do a whole stream and then I'll show how it links up. But I can't do that right now. It'll bore people. So go ahead, Al. Go ahead.
Oh yeah. And Buddhism doesn't even have a loose definition of the truth, bro. Confucianism is, you could say, the only influence Buddhism has had is the creation of Confucianism, which is completely different from postmodernism. What are you on about, bro? So how can two separate ideologies come from Buddhism, Confucianism and postmodernism? That means that your ideology is just, it's like water. It can adapt to anything.
Once again, he's a nihilist. He's a neoliberal. He tries to bend history to fit his worldview. So he tries to connect old things with new things.
Snake man, how can Buddhism inspire Confucianism, which is the complete opposite of postmodernism? But at the same time, you're telling me Buddhism also inspired postmodernism.
Most of ideology, as you said, were inspired by the Yahoo Boys. And they were inspired by the history in Europe being oppressed all the time. Now, does Yahoo Boys have some Eastern aspect? Yes, because that is their homeland. But that means that Yahoo Boys are now connected to China? No.
Look.
Exactly.
Let's go ahead, Al. I'm not going to respond to that right now. Go ahead, Al.
Yeah, can you skip me? Let the next guy come in and I'll come after.
Okay, go ahead, Guardian.
All right. So, speaking on the topic, Western civilization, who created it? As of today, as we know it, from my perspective, as we see it, Western civilization is based off of especially the USA or American civilization, and American civilization was built by Black people in America. So, Western civilization, as we know it today, is based off of Black people in America, from culture, technology, etc. Everything we use down to the traffic light, etc.
Technology.
Everything we have is based off of the inventions coming out of America, cotton gin, the fabrics we use, textiles and such. So it's all coming from America, which is all coming from the root of it, Black people in America. So that's my answer to that.
Can I ask you a question before everyone goes?
Hi, bro.
Do you mean, hold on, Nyla, please, let's be civil. Do you mean that America, being a melting pot, made many new discoveries because they had also different cultural influences? Do you mean that?
No, not being a melting pot, because during that slavery era, it was mainly just, it was a melting pot of white people, of different, Germans, English, Irish, Scottish. It was a melting pot of white people. Then it was the black people here that was taken from Africa, and then also the indigenous people here that was enslaved, and those who were the tribes that were not a part of America. There was two sets of indigenous people: those who were not enslaved, so they were like independent and warring with the American society, and those who were caught up in the slavery and were a part of that. So it was mainly just three different groups.
What I mean with the question is, it not came all from just Anglo-Saxon culture. It was
right. No, not just Anglo.
Okay. Because I know what Kaiser will say. I know what Kaiser will say in his endless retardation.
Yeah. So that's the root of it, the genesis of it, and then we have what we have today from the genesis of that.
Okay, so Guardian, let me ask you a question. So same question, right? So how come all these civilizations survived time, at least the ideas did, and they helped to codify the things into practical things such as legal systems and structures? For example, in Japan, it's very different from the West. They rarely put people in prison for non-violent crimes, for example. They do more of a cultural whatever it's called. They go back to the person, I don't need to explain it, right? It's very different from the West. So some of these cultures existed still there. Meanwhile, obviously, in African cultures, most of them, not all of them, there is no real reinterpretation of British common law in their own traditional civilizational values. So how come basically for so-called East, some of their cultural values, philosophies, and minds of thoughts have survived across time? Same thing with the so-called West, but in Africa, there's no transcontinental survival of these ideas and inculcate them with the so-called British.
Shout out to Japan who celebrates Christmas.
Yeah.
No, we're not talking about. Come on, no one cares about Christmas. But yeah,
go ahead. Religious ideas that spread that still exist today, and spiritual ideas. I'd say, I do believe a lot of ideas are still existed from African societies from the past that exist today, mainly spiritual and religious ones, or the idea that God is from within. And it seems like, well, I'm not going to claim to be like a super expert on African spirituality, but from what I understand, African spirituality teaches that God is within your soul, our spirit. So I think that idea, that concept has still exists today. Oh, see, still there, Kaiser?
Yeah, I'm still here. Okay.
Or am I misunderstanding the question?
No, you've understood the question. I think I already have the answer, right? That's why I asked the question, to be honest. Africa is a dusty. I think that was really the answer to my question. But
so one question is this: since we're talking about something global, and you mentioned Europe and Asia, when I mentioned Americas or even Oceania, you pretty much took offense to that. And why is that?
Because they're not civilizations, bro. In the definition he's talking about.
They defined it as being civilization.
Oh my God, Brian, bro, who gives a fuck?
I'm talking about the university interpretation of it. What I learned in school.
Who gives a fuck, bro? We're looking at something and we're saying whether it's a civilization or not.
We live on the internet, right?
Oh.
We live on the internet, right? It's a global society.
Civilization is just a placeholder word, bro. We are just using civilization as a placeholder word. Those are not civilizations.
Why are you hostile? Talk to me, bro.
Oh my God.
Why are you so hostile?
Bro, you keep bringing it back to Kaiser. It's like we move 3 steps. Bride brings us back to the first step again.
We're still talking about the same bloody thing, bro.
No, it's a problem.
You know what we're talking about when we talk about civilization.
Let me explain. Kaiser is a white man's booty clapper. And what he tries to do, that's why I say, hold on, don't take it personal. That's why I say most of his discussion Like he answered his own question is, okay, how can I say Africa is dusty? And then he comes up with retarded topics who makes no logical sense, mixes in his own biases with definitions where are counter definitions, and then tries to make a show about it. Those understand. Kaiser don't care if the white man coined Oceania as a civilization. He just wants one conclusion. Africa is dusty. So if you
What
bring
about
up
writings from Egypt?
no. It does not matter. It does not matter. If you bring up that the same white man he tries to booty clap said that Oceania is a civilization, he does not care because that is not his goal. His goal is not to say what's a civilization.
Brian, when the civilizations Keizo was talking about are the ones that still have a cultural and you could even say philosophical, etc. influence, even financial influence, even today. And clearly, he thinks the Western civilization, which whatever part of the earth you live on today, you are influenced by Western civilization. Whatever he calls Eastern civilization, China and India, to a far lesser extent, maybe you are influenced by it. Maybe you are, maybe you aren't. But that is really the only competing civilization out there. That's what he means.
Okay, I got you. I thought.
Yeah.
Those we're not counting those as civilizations because let's be honest. Until today, I didn't even know. Until you mentioned that, I didn't even know what an Oceania civilization was. So no disrespect to them.
You did?
Well, they didn't teach you that in college.
No, I'm being joking. In a joking way, Brian.
Putting dried up chicken bones on your nose through your nose is not a civilization, Brian.
Say what?
Keizo, that's your people.
What are you talking about? Keizo, what did you say?
Keizo, that's literally your people.
Queso. Hey, now, weren't your people naked at one time?
Look. It's not about my.
Not one time.
And you know what?
Brian, not one time. Just 300 years ago. Not even one time.
Yeah, guys, let's move on to the next guy, James. Let's talk on the conversation so far.
No, but Keizo, we can't just gloss over what I'm saying right now. So, are we just going to accept that Black people are now the core of Western civilization, or I would say Black Americans?
Okay, so one thing I wanted to lead to is this, right? Abby, if you notice, in the so-called postmodernism, or let's just say we're not really postmodernism, we're modernism a little bit, right? In the current so-called Western civilization, we're not even contributing to the new ideas. We're fighting against some of it, sure, but we're not really contributing to the civilization here either. We're not even adding to it. But anyway,
say we, who do you mean?
What is there to add?
I mean, Black people, Africans.
Keizo, what is there to add?
Okay, for example, okay. We're not even okay. So, okay, good point. So let's use Africa as an example.
So you want to add to the LGBT movement, Kaiser? Because that is
no. Hang on. Wait. You can even how do I say this, right? Either we fight a losing war, or we don't add anything. We're not.
Keizo, there's a reason. Okay, Keizo, I remember. Keizo, I know what you're trying to say. I heard. I was listening to some Middle Eastern guys, some Arabs, people who talk about Arab civilizations, blah blah blah, and he was talking about how the refuting of Western civilization and of Western philosophies actually strengthens Western philosophy, and because when these guys say, "Oh, Western civilization is racist," or "Western civilization is blah blah blah," this and that, you're actually strengthening it by criticizing it, right? So he was saying, and my theory is, you guys strengthen it by your rebuke of it because you use its own philosophies to fight against it. So you guys go in and say, "Oh, Western civilization is not inclusive." Inclusivity is a Western ideology in itself. So you're using their own ideology to fight against them. In that way, you're strengthening them. So you need to have your own set of morals that you are standing on that is different from Western philosophy completely for it to be diminished in any way. Because you cannot use its own philosophy to fight against it, if that makes sense. And that is why a lot of these Africans are failing, because they're using, I shouldn't say these Africans, but just Eastern philosophy, whatever, these non-Westerners are failing because they use past anti-LGBT talking points to rebuke LGBT points of today, bro. To rebuke the LGBT of today. So they will go back to 1960s talking points of the West against the LGBT and use that to rebuke the LGBT, where you should be using your own, if that makes sense.
Return to ancient kingdom. Return to ancient.
So they will talk about, oh, it's going to break up families, bro. That's a Western talking point, bro.
Yeah, so, for example, okay, Snake Man. Okay, let me give you a really, because you love to be a contrarian, but you don't like to adding to the point, right? A simple example of, like, let's say Africans adding or taking away, or just contributing to the Western whatever thing that we've already taken on, anyways, for most of us. Why should our family structures break down just because we're increasing economics? How come we can easily predict African birth rates and other sort of Western illnesses that have come from Western civilization on African populations? If we had contributed, we were participating in this whole building of this civilization that we've again adopted for the most part, we should be able to prevent some of these Western illnesses by integrating our own.
Okay, but Keizo, this is where your idea of Eastern and Western civilization falls apart, because the East has fallen to the same thing, hasn't it? You can pretty much predict the fall of birth rates also in the East. So
true.
There is no Keizo. I think you just need to come and realize, bro. There is no Eastern civilization, bro. Eastern civilization is just a concept that was created by the Westerners because of the invading horde. That's it. It was just an othering.
Right.
Because look at the East. Haven't they fallen completely to Western civilization as well?
I love
that. You bring up, look at Japan's prison system, Keizo, bro. Every country has a different prison system. Ethiopia has a different prison system. Even in Ethiopia, you have like elders. You can go the judicial way, or you can get elders, or in the rural areas, you can go in something they call Dammalash, which is if someone kills a member of your family, you go and kill another member of their family, and now you're even or something. That doesn't mean shit, bro. Like all of us have, there is no alternative to the Western civilization these days, bro. So saying Eastern civilization does not fucking exist.
Okay, so good point, right? If you're comparing 1-to-1, then I agree with you. James, go ahead. What's your thought on the conversation so far?
So what are we talking about? Are we talking about Western civilization in general, or are we talking about just civilization as a whole? Like what is civilization?
Okay. Whichever place you want to start from, you go give us your perspective. Then we'll roll with it.
Man, we broke Kaiser.
So I know. So I know Caesar. So I know Caesar was on here earlier, and he was talking about like I guess somebody was saying that like in order for places in sub-Saharan Africa to become civilized, they had to be taught this or something by another group of people. That's what I was responding to at first. But what I believe is that civilization comes from. Here's the thing, like with civilization, like you have to learn animal husbandry. You have to learn agriculture. You have to be sedentary. You have to have surplus so you can trade with other people. Like that, like there's steps to like civilization. I guess that's if you want to go with the academic thing. But you find a lot of these things in Africa. It's just that, sometimes you find writing, sometimes you don't. I mean, but the Inca didn't have writing, but they're still considered civilization. So like, there's different degrees and shit like that. That was my whole thing. And my other thing was that like we didn't need it. Sometimes there's some things that you were saying is that when I was talking about Great Zimbabwe, right? And you said that, and we were talking on like genetics, you said that some of them have like the J haplogroup. It seems like you were implying is that the reason why they are able to do what they were able to do, civilization wise or like building wise, is because they have an outside influence in their DNA or in their culture that allowed them to do it, but nothing that is indigenous to them.
Okay.
I don't know how you feel about that, but
Okay, so James, so one of the points I made before everyone came in was that culture-wise, and I think this is actually the highest IQ point TankyBot says, made me kind of reconsider or think about it, is it's not just a simple issue of IQ or percentages of IQ like I used to kind of focus on, and the distribution of the West having more high IQ people. That it's not even that. It really is culture. The West, the high IQ people in the West, including the artistic people, they created a culture around it during the Renaissance to allow their types of reasoning to reach cultural penetration. So the main difference between them and us is we didn't do the same thing when it comes to the intellectual pursuit. We didn't create a culture around it. And even if you look at today, let's say the Nigerians, Ghanaian, Habesha families that get taught, oh, you must succeed, you must be a doctor and a lawyer. That's not intellectualism. That is actually just fitting within a system, very, very constricted system, and this allows for creativity. So even today, we still don't have an intellectual culture. Intellectual culture is more about it's actually about preferring the art, preferring the higher levels of society. It's not about becoming craftsmen, as Ike mentioned. It's about becoming a true engineer that can see through the whole structure. It's so even if you look at African civilizations today,
you know what?
we still don't have an intellectual culture. Yeah.
No. But see, that's what exactly what. All right, so I like that you put that point there, because the thing is that, like, when people try to do things right, it's like when niggas say, like, in America, like, oh yeah, I got a business, and they just selling T-shirts out the back of their car. It's not like they have a mill. It's like they still have to rely on something. They still have to be part of this system. It's not something is where they say, like, oh, you could just be you should just be what do you call it, an entrepreneur, this and that. But you have to also be a consumer while being an entrepreneur. So, like, if you just cut out certain things, like if you own like a million, what do you call it? You own like a mill, you make your own T-shirts, right? Or whatever, your own fabric or whatever. One, you cut out that middleman. I mean, you control your own distribution. You cut out that. It's like we're just trying to be part of a system to make quick cash because we're not thinking of anything long term. And that's what I see a lot of problem with black people in America, ain't even in Africa. Right. It's like we don't care about our past cultures, and we don't try to update it. But not only that, it's like we think of everything in short term. It's like we don't want to suffer, or at least take a sacrifice of not like being like what do you call it? Like as successful, so that the next generation can be more successful than us.
Keizo,
we
you know
also
what
have
this
to
is?
create and innovate.
Go ahead, Abby.
Keizo, you know what this is? This is coke, bro. All of you, the whole world has been defeated by Western civilization, bro. There is no alternative. There is no, oh, my own culture. We need to be creating. No one is, bro. When you look at China, that's just a carbon copy of whatever you call Western civilization. The only difference is now they're fighting for the global South market space. So they're going to act like they have an alternative model to whatever Western civilization has created. There is no Western and Eastern civilization. There's Western civilization that has monopolized the whole world. Everyone is part of that Western civilization umbrella. Any rich country that you can look at on this earth, there is no alternative. You're all part of the Western civilization. All of you.
AKA globalist is a Western term.
Well, you know what? Because their ideology is from the West originally, that communism that they follow, and they also follow capitalism, which originates as well. So,
bingo.
So, Keizo, here's my thing. What is this Eastern culture that is still around? There is none. When you look at, bro, Eastern culture is just yoga and a few Confucianism texts and so on. It's not even a real thing. When you look at any of these Eastern countries today, do they work on the principles of Eastern philosophy or Western philosophy?
Okay, I would say actually that there is an element of so-called Eastern philosophy, the whole sacrificing yourself for the future. That's still there.
Oh my God!
I mean, China.
Okay, so that shit has isn't that part of Western society as well?
Also, yeah, but
it just depends what time you go back to.
Okay, true. But anyway, before I go there, let's go ahead and shout out to the sponsor of the stream. Shout out
to okay, just admit we are all conquered babies of Western philosophy, Western civilization, bro.
I'll seep into that. Yeah, shout out to Saxophone for the $5. It says great convo. Thank you very much, my mixed race brother from America. And Al, go ahead, brother. I don't know if
are you sure it's not just North African?
Yeah. Yes, I'm here and. Good afternoon from the UK. Yeah, basically, my intake on this is that there is Western civilization, there is Middle Eastern civilization, and there's also Eastern civilization, like the Southeast, in like the Indians and the Chinese. I'll call that Eastern civilization, and the Arabs. To East Africa, I'll call that Middle Eastern civilization, based on the population that was there at the time. And also, we had our own civilization in Africa. You know, we cannot ignore that. I understand that today the Western civilization happened to be the most dominant, but if you look at their civilization, it's based on borrowed culture, right? And if you look, for example, the most relevant civilization and most relevant empire that's still in control of the world is the Roman Empire. And the Roman Empire wasn't just a European empire, it was both Europe, Mediterranean and African empire, because the people that was in this empire were people of color and people of white race, which basically Mediterraneans who conquered Europe and changed their ways. And in England, for example, the Anglo-Saxon culture that they had, it wasn't sophisticated at all. In fact, they hardly use that today. Even their language is disappeared because of the Romans, right? So we have to take this into context. So I think we overrate the Western civilization. What we did not do in Africa is to keep the system we had in place and also add value to our culture and our civilization. Unfortunately, we wasn't given the opportunity to do so because of colonization and instability, tribal wars, and different things that happened over the years. So I think the Western civilization is totally overrated. And if you look at the what they managed, yes, it's overrated. I think the Western civilization is an add-on civilization from the East, from Middle East, and from North Africa to Mediterranean. That's been add-on. That's what we have today, in total. And I cannot see how anyone can deny that. Go back to the Romans. I'll give you an example. In Newcastle, north of England, right? If you count 6 people, 1 out of 6 people in Newcastle today are directly descendant of a black Roman general, right? When our people came to Europe, these people were sleeping with their cattle. It's black people that took Africans, black people, Romans, West African. I'm a fuller descendant of West Africa, and I know for a fact my ancestors were part of this movement, right? At the end of the Roman Empire, if you go to
show respect. Come on.
Bro, African flags of teaching Europeans needs to stop. I thought
this is fucking crazy, bro. First of all, this guy said Mediterranean and African. The only Africans that were part of the quote unquote the Roman Empire were the North Africans, who themselves are Mediterranean. So that's a redundancy. Secondly, you come on, bro. What the fuck are we doing, bro? This guy comes here and says
he's Fulani. To be honest, he is Fulani. He is Fulani, so he's at least 20% North.
Shut the fuck up, bro.
No. You must understand. You said in Britain. They found some Roman legionaries on Tahitian Wall because Tahitian Wall was basically the dumping place of all the soldiers that they need, and they found somewhere where sub-Saharan Africa, like.
Wait, Abby, are you sure this guy here?
Bro, this is the most. Kizo, you say me and Snake Man are coping when we say I'm not even coping. I'm more extreme than you. These guys keep coming here and saying, "Oh, Western civilization is the most dominant civilization right now, bro." It's not the most dominant civilization. It's the only civilization. All of you are part of Western civilization right now. Even when you are trying to fight Western dominance or what you call it, you are still using Western civilization to do it.
Abby, that's what I wanted us to do. Like, actually transverse the point to get to this point. When you mentioned,
still we are opposing you. Funny, isn't it?
Yeah, that's not the point. It's not about me, Snake Man. We wanted to move the conversation forward, and we reached there. Right now, we get to the point where globalism is the only civilization, and it's majority Western civilization. And I think
it's only Western. You guys need to stop coping. It is only Western civilization. There is no majority. It's dominant. It's the only thing, bro.
in that case, the word Western civilization is not useful because there's factions in Western civilization. So we need.
Who gives a fuck, Caesar? We all know what we're talking about when we say Western civilization.
Yeah, but the
principles and the ethos that comes with it.
The purpose of word, like there's a purpose of words. So if we're under Western civilization, we need another term because there's definitely factions of Western civilization, right? We're willing to kill each other.
Globally.
Like what?
Democracy. Globally.
Like what?
What do you mean? Do you think that and the fact that
what are the factions? No, okay, so you see, this is the thing. These niggas just say whatever they want. Like what factions?
Bro, you gave me like 1 millisecond. Jesus.
Neither, let Caesar speak. Come on.
Okay, what are the factions? Let me just freestyle. I'm not as good as Kaiser.
Even your name, guess what? Your name comes from where? Your name comes from the Roman Emperor Caesar. You see, there's only Western civilization. Why don't you have an Obibo, Ochiku, Igwe? You see what I mean?
No, there's factions, right? So you have China, you have Russia, you have I don't know if I can say the word Africa. You have America, you have the Europe. These are all.
Oh my God! You are the recipients of that civilization. You are not the civilization. What the fuck are you on about?
I am back. I apologize for earlier. I think the line went past. But as I was saying, the last time I went to Guinea in West Africa, Guinea Conakry, because there's different Guinea in Africa. I went to the ancestral home of the Fullers. There is a place called Dalaba in Fouta Djallon, where there's a Roman shrine there, and this Roman shrine belonged to a former Roman military general, someone that actually was part of the Roman Empire. Because the thing is, during the Roman days, it wasn't based on color. Roman Empire wasn't color empire. It was an empire of people in certain region that came together, and came to Europe and actually civilized Europe. Yeah. So the Roman Empire
helps civilize.
The Roman Empire originated in Europe. What the fuck are you on about, bro? This guy back.
It did originate in Europe. It did originate in Europe.
Are you trying to say
at the end of the empire, by the end of the empire, it wasn't the Roman Empire wasn't based only in Europe. It was based in Europe and Africa.
Wait, are you
Roma,
North Africa?
I just
that's
North Africa,
you cannot deny that. By the end of the Roman Empire, Empire was the North Africa and Mediterranean were the same. They were the people that actually was in the foot. Do you understand?
Bro.
What's the point of bragging?
North Africans are Mediterraneans themselves. What are you on about, bro?
What's the point of bragging about being a slave class in a civilization? I don't understand. What's
exactly
slave class? No, this is where you get it wrong. The black people in the Roman Empire were not slaves. They wasn't slaves. There was no slaves. There was no slaves. There was no slave in the Roman Empire based on color. There was no slave in the Roman Empire based on color. There was no slave in the Roman Empire based on color. Remember that. It wasn't. There was listen. No. Before you explain, let me just finish because you've been talking all day. Yeah. There was no such thing as slavery based on color during the Roman Empire. It was more like a caste system, where therefore it depends on your role. Yeah. In the Roman Empire, that determined your outcome. It wasn't based on the color. So there was hierarchy. Black. Can you stop interrupting if you want to learn? Yeah, there was hierarchy.
Bro, we're not letting shit go.
Keep yelling. First of all, you came on here, you interrupted everyone. We'll let you talk. Was there ever a Fulani leader in Rome, like an emperor? Never a Fulani emperor or anything like that, or maybe
allegedly there was a Fulani general, bro. Allegedly.
General, not emperor. General. If you go to Guinea,
you know what happened?
This place called
Dalaba. This was just a normal soldier. When he came back, he claimed he was a general.
Oh, let me tell you what I'm saying.
No. You know what? You guys don't want to learn, so you just want to criticize for the sake of it. What I'm trying to say to you is there was no such thing as color. There was no such thing as color based on slavery based on color during the Roman Empire. There was no such thing, and the Roman Empire wasn't just white. It was black people in there, white people, and barbers. You know them, yeah?
Oh, let me tell you the equivalent of what you're saying. In America,
I am telling you this based on what I studied. I'm telling you this based also on what I studied in the UK, where the Roman invaded and conquered. So in the UK, yeah, there's an emperor called the last black emperor, right? The last black emperor was a black man from Libya. Yeah, was a black man from Libya that conquered the UK in terms of military-wise. Yeah, and his body is currently in York, in England. No, it's not just storytelling; it's a reality.
Black, let me tell you
was black.
He was a Berber. He was a Berber.
You just inferior to your color, bro. That's why
you're talking about. You guys, you're talking about Severus, right?
You guys are inferior to your own color skin. You're inferior.
You're inferior.
You're talking about Severus.
Have you ever noticed these Africans?
During
have you ever noticed your fellow pro-black Africans? They like to, on one hand, they will say North Africans, oh, they're different from us. They're not black. And then when it comes to Roman history, they want to act like every North African is also black now.
Here's my thing. Why do we come over here and say this stuff? Why can't you tell the white man that you're a part of Roman civilization? Let's see how we think.
Because you laugh at him, bro. You laugh in his face. He can only lie. It's like, who's that guy, Tyrone? He can only come here and tell us he's a Native American. Because if he went to an actual Native American space, they would laugh at him and chase him out. So he has to also come here and spread his delusion amongst people he thinks he can fool.
Instead of trying to convince us that you're a part of Rome, the Fulani or a part of Rome, whatever helps you sleep at night, go to Italy, go to the Western world, and go tell them that and debate with them. Don't come to us. We agree with you, sure. What is that? What happens if we're part of Rome? What happens now? Do we get a trophy or something?
Yeah, this is the problem with Western civilization, and why none of these dusties who claim they want to fight against Western civilization can never be successful. Because all they're doing is trying to squeeze themselves into the picture of Western civilization. You had an FBA guy come here earlier and say, oh, actually, we are the foundation now of Western civilization because America is now the center of Western civilization. And at the center of America, black people built America. And then you have another delusional Fulani here who comes and tells you, oh, Fulanis were part of the Roman Empire. We had generals and shit. Because you guys are trying to use Western civilization to fight against it, which can never happen. You're trying to demean Western civilization by acting like you were also a part of it.
Nyla, what they're going to say one day is this. They're going to say that, look, Obama his father is Kenyan, right? Kenya was a part of like the U.S., or maybe like Kenya was a part of Western civilization. Look, they had a Kenyan guy be president at one point. So obviously, you know, it's a complete context of the entire society, you know?
Bro, exactly. 2,000 years from now, you know what they're going to do? Caesar, 2,000 years from now, you know what these pro-blacks are going to do? They're going to have a picture of Beyonce, Obama, Jay-Z, and all these niggas and say, you see, the elites of America were black people.
Oh my God. The elites,
fuck up.
all of the elites were black. Wow.
You see, this is the history they're trying to hide from you. America was actually ruled by black people. Shut up.
Oh God.
What I was trying to say is the Western civilization is overrated. A lot of their stuff that they have today, a lot of the stuff that they actually use is a borrowed culture. You know, if you come to England, for example, you know, curry. You know, curry has been made like a British dish, but we all know curry came from India. If you look at England today in the West, the black kids dress more Western than the white kids. White kids actually dress more black. Yeah, they actually borrowed. It's what they call borrowed cultures. White people actually, the West, they copy from other part of the world. Yeah, they bring it in. You know, the best. They basically pick the best part of it, and they actually inject it into their system because it actually work and it suit them.
Yeah, so
that's what we do.
Kingdoms. We stands for loser in your language.
I can't, man, honestly, bro. You see when they speak, I don't know if it's German, but I can't understand your English, man. You need to speak a bit clear.
No, I'm not talking to you.
We can't understand your English either.
No, hold on. You must understand in the comment section, Kaiser is insulting you and trying to protect you.
Okay, no, it's no. What I'm trying to say is I don't understand what you meant. But the reality is, no, I know Kaiser where he stands. As far as he's concerned, you know, black people are dusty. We Africans are dumb. We have low IQ. We never contribute enough in the history of mankind and stuff like that. And that's not true, Kaiser. You know, I understand. You know, we have been disappointing our people, and our ancestors have disappointed us. You know, in a lot of ways so far. You know, like a lot of things that happen when it comes to, you know, slavery and, you know, tribal wars. You know, and letting the foreigners come in and invade our land and settle in, stuff like that. But however, there are other things that we have contributed into, you know, in the Western world, and the Indians, and the Middle Eastern. In fact, the Middle East, like Mesopotamia, you know, like where you call Iraq today, that's where a lot of people used to go do studies, you know, from Europe. You know, a lot of people used to go to Mali to go and study about different things. You know, a lot of people used to travel to the Asian world. Why Europeans done that? They travel to the Asian world to study things and see how it works, and they come back and they introduce it in their system. We never done that. We only just stayed in our continent. Apart of obviously during the Romans and the Almoravid, that some of our people left with them, you know, and came to the Asian world, but they never returned back with that knowledge. You know, so this is why I stand in there. So in terms of saying Fulani was part of the Roman Empire, it wasn't just Fulani, it was a lot of West African tribe that was conquered by the Berbers. So when the Berbers and the Romans merged together, this is where a lot of the black people actually got into the Roman Empire and actually start doing the things that the Romans were doing, and we become part of their culture. Because in England, you know, they have name for them. They call them the Moors. The black people in England that came here, they used to call them the Moors. Yeah. So obviously, you know, the Moors were black and Berbers together. This were the Moors in ancient days, right? So this is what I'm trying to say. You know, the Western civilization is overrated.
So let me, Abby, just before you come.
Okay, well done. Kezo, you notice this is why I say Western civilization is the monopoly of civilization in today's day and age. Because none of these people are fighting for their own civilization. All they're saying is, "Oh, we contributed to Western civilization. Give me my credit."
Right. And just
okay, yeah. I mean, yes, people can see that. If you contributed to something, you should see that.
No, you didn't contribute to shit, man. Shut the fuck up. No one cares.
Wait, 1 second now. Let's let Ajuran. So what about you? Yeah, you.
You know what? You're gonna suck your mom, bro. Don't ever tell me that again. Go and suck your mom.
Yeah.
Do you understand me? Suck your mom 10 times.
Wait, guys. Let's respect. Go ahead, Ajuran.
I will suck your mom.
No,
I'll suck your mom off.
Yeah. Keep saying it because you're talking for me now. Keep saying it.
Yeah, go ahead, Ajuran. Give us your thoughts on the conversation so far.
I don't even know what's going on. What were you guys talking about? Fulani? You were talking about Fulani?
No.
We're talking about the Black Romans. We're talking about the Black Romans in Britain.
Do you think that the black people have contributed to anything significant in the world culture right now? What we know as globalism and Western culture, or do you think we're just dusty?
First of all, I don't know why people are proud of being slaves in another civilization. It's a bit sad. Trying to claim civilization that ain't yours. It's like me claiming Chinese civilization. It's just nonsense. It's a bit of disgrace as well. You should be proud of your Fulani heritage. Don't know why you're claiming something that's all the way to the Italy side, you know what I mean? Southern Europe. Come on, bro. Yeah, my civilization is all what? I don't know, bro. What do you want me to say about civilization, bro?
I'll just say you have no idea.
Okay, so an example is, for example, Ajuran, you guys have a Somali script, but you guys don't even use it today. You use the Latin script. That's part of like the idea that Western civilization is taking control over everyone.
Not really. It's just the script, bro. It's not that deep. They don't like, bro. It's just a script, bro. We used to write in Arabic. Now we write in English. It doesn't matter, bro.
Actually, Abby, I would say that in terms of religion, at least, and the power of religion, I forgot Eurasian civilization also has quite a big impact. Like Islam right now has a huge impact in the world's culture and even mindsets, political systems as well. So I did forget the whole Islam thing. which is like Eurasia.
Yeah, but once again, you said Asia. That is Middle East.
Guys are absolutely right. I mean, when you talk about, you know, science, and we cannot separate Islam to science, you see. I'm a part of modern day Islam, because now modern day Islam is all about conquering other people and jihad. Well, the reality is when Islam came about, it was about learning science and philosophy and different things. In fact, Islam helped invented a lot of things in the world, you know. So the reality is, civilization. My man was saying I should be proud of also my civilization. Of course, we have what they call it. It was a little kid.
Oh, just because someone was Muslim and invented something doesn't mean Islam contributed. Okay, does that mean Confucianism?
If that's the case, Christianity runs circles around Islam, because all of these Western inventors were Christians. So does that mean all Christians now take credit?
Does
that mean you got the Christian in Africa?
Yahoo boys. Don't forget Yahoo boys.
Yeah, exactly. Bro, this is what I mean by the stupidity of the way these people interpret history.
That's what
but let's not forget though. Let's not forget that the Muslims also took from the ancient Greeks and the Romans too, when it came to knowledge, and they expanded on it.
And
so it's a back and forth.
And also, my brother, what about Egypt? Was Egypt African Arab civilization?
Oh my God!
Is that what Kaiser is going to claim?
We was kings and shit.
So Egypt is not African civilization.
Egypt was Arab. It's not African. Yeah, it's not African.
No, that's not true. That is not true. I would totally deny that. So you're gonna ignore the Nubian as well? Yeah, the Nubian civilization was
No. What Kaiser is meaning? Don't get triggered. This is meaning nowadays it's Arabic, but in the past it was not.
No. But my brother that's speaking. Just let me ask the Kaiser this question. Kaiser, so the Nubian and the Egyptian civilization was not African. It was dusty one, yeah.
No, Nubia was Africa, but Egypt was Arab.
No, it wasn't Arab. Egypt wasn't Arab. Egypt wasn't Arab. I can argue with you.
Egypt is a new foundation, man. Jesus Christ.
Egypt wasn't Arab. Egypt wasn't Arab. The Arab came in. The Arab came in later on.
Let me ask you a question, right? Let me ask you a question. How come, right? If you look at the building structures and the stone type and everything, like in ancient Egypt, why does it look like the ones in ancient Rome? Yes, I know one is older than the other. That's not the point. But it was the same people. It was the Mediterraneans who built the ancient.
What are you talking about? Most pyramids are in Sudan. What are you talking about?
No, it wasn't.
Egyptian structures are in Sudan. What are you talking about?
From Sudan, from modern day Sudan. Tell him the German archaeologist went to Sudan. He saw the origin of the pyramid, and he started destroying them. That's before the First or Second World War.
No, because talk about Alexander's Egypt, you know, and Ptolemy. So this is very right. 10 different people. It's very right.
Yeah,
everything.
Yeah. So Nubia, Sudan. That's where it started. The pyramid, the older pyramid, were built in Sudan all the way up to Egypt. So and remember, the Egypt, the north and the south, is totally opposite of how we describe north and south.
Why are we talking about Egypt? Why are you talking about Egypt? The most capped civilization.
So obviously had African civilizations. I mean, for me, that's obvious, right? The only issue is that we didn't conquer the whole world, right?
Yes, yeah, okay, I agree with that. I agree. Okay, that's true.
Obviously, we had African civilizations. We don't have to talk about Egypt or any of Arab nonsense. We have completely African. Look at the Zulu. I mean, we have African civilizations. They just didn't conquer the world. Period. That's it.
No, but the Zulu did. All they did is conquer their own African brothers. They conquered the Khoikhoi and the Khoisan, who was more busy killing one another and conquering one another instead of conquering the world. That is true. But, however, we cannot forget that Egypt or Nubia or Kemet and all the civilization were black people. So we cannot give our civilization away to outsiders and then trying to, deny our own past, because I'm not going to put up with that. I would never.
Even if they're black people, that doesn't mean that it's us, bro. Even if they're black people, that doesn't mean that it's us.
Oh no, the outsiders already. It's
does not mean that it's us.
Yeah, that's just what it is. It's like saying, we must protect Native American culture. We're not allowed to give them to the outsiders. And every fucking place of land is occupied by them. What are you talking about? It's already done. It's gone. Let it go.
Yo, that's like saying that the Inuit and the Aztecs are the same people. They both Native Americans, but they're not the same people. So it doesn't even matter. We're not the same people. We're not Egyptians, bro.
Look, what Snake Man is saying is you can never, the rest of sub-Saharan Africa can never claim Egypt or any of these civilizations because the Arabs have. Oh my God.
Yeah, but let me just finish
Diego,
this.
can you
Right?
mute
If you look at them, when they do the geogenetic and historical studies, they find out the origin of these people actually is in the northwest Nile Valley. That's where they came. They left there
Stop
and they
playing,
came
bro.
to West
No,
Africa.
no, we're not.
And
That's not where we
settled
come
down.
from, bro. Stop it.
Hey, Snake Man.
West Africa,
Now,
bro.
Yo,
now
my
the Egyptians are
American
West
brother,
African.
my Indian American brother, you
The
know nothing
OG.
about Africa. Yeah, you know
Yes,
nothing about
hold on,
Africa. So when the
hold on,
Africans
hold on.
speaking about their history, just don't
Let
interrupt,
someone
don't get involved. Just be quiet.
let someone more intelligent
Yeah?
think. Yes, the originator of the West African migrated somewhere out of East Africa, but that was all before
From the
civilization.
Nile Valley,
That was
from
all
the Nile
before
Valley,
Egypt was a
Not from no
thing.
Nile
That
Valley.
was
Stop playing
all.
games, bro.
That's all before that.
Northwest Nile Valley,
That's
Nubia.
all before that.
Most of the West African tribes, all the Igbo, Ijo, Yoruba, Fula, Mandinka,
No,
most
they
of
do
these
not.
tribes
No, they
came
do not. No, they do not.
from Nubia. They're
No, they do
Nubian.
not. No, they do not.
Their
You say that
But
Yatan?
genetics say they're
Yatan
from
come from holes in
Nubia.
the ground, bro.
They migrated
Get
out
out
of
of
it
here.
long before that. Before even there was any kind of civilization we're talking about. You know how long that is?
Yeah. No, that's true. But at one point in time, they were the people in Nubia. Yeah. Once upon a time, they were the people in Nubia, Snake Man. That's what I'm trying to say. You know, they was okay. Of course, they came there. The
Oh,
ancient
and
people.
how did they get to West Africa all the way from?
How did they get to West
It
Africa?
was when
All
the
the way from
Sahara. It was when the Sahara still was green. That's why I say.
Exactly.
This
Thank
is
you very
long
much.
before
Bro.
Egypt. That's long before Egypt.
Yeah, possibly.
These guys
Yeah,
are
possibly.
retards. I
Nubia.
thought,
I'm talking
Snake Man,
about
I thought you were
Nubia.
going to try and imply that.
I said Nubia. I don't know what time was Nubia.
Bro, you're not a part
You
of
know
that
Nubia and
civilization.
Egypt are two
Stop
different
tethering it, man.
civilizations, right? You
Jesus
know that they
Christ.
are, right?
Do you know what?
They're
You
two
guys
different
know it all.
civilizations.
You guys know it all. I'll let you carry on. Yeah. Okay.
You
You
talk
have a nice
about the
day.
time. You talk about the
The
time.
Nile
They say
Valley
ancient.
civilization, but they're two different civilizations.
James, I talks about the time. The back migration of the North African did not even happen at that time. So the North African we know was not there when the West African migrated, when the East African migrated into West Africa. So all what is good. Learn your time. Just because just because I'm a tourist in Egypt. I was once a tourist in Egypt. Doesn't mean that I was physical in Egyptian soil. Doesn't mean now that all my descendants are Egyptian.
No, you're not listening. Most West African came from Sudan. We are what they call the Sudanic black, yeah? Because you got different kind of black.
This is retarded. This is
Yo, that's an Arab term.
That's my
Sudan is an
question.
Arab term, bro. That's really stupid.
If these quote unquote Nubians were so civilized and so advanced, why did they get chased out of their land all the way into? Some people will say Congo. Some people will say, how do you get chased all the way that far back, man?
It's not sad. He talks about once again. He confuses something. Yes, ancient West Africans, the ancestors come somewhere out of East Africa and something, but that was before even the back migration from the North African was there. Basically, when the West African came to be, North Africans, those pale motherfuckers from the Caucasian mountain, was not even in Africa. He's confusing his timelines.
Exactly. He's mixing in a million years with thousands of years, bro. With a few thousands of years.
And that's why I don't understand, because you always talk about low IQ dusty Africans, but you are literally a magnet for those people.
Yo, this is the actual problem. Because people always conflate the timelines. Because when they say Nubia or they say in Egypt or whatever, they act like the people during like the pre-dynastic, the dynastic, in the Old Kingdom, in the Middle Kingdom, and the New Kingdom went over to West Africa, and there was nobody in West Africa at the time. They don't know their timeline.
But okay, I give. But Kaiser, I never disagreed. Yes, the West is powerful. It's a hegemon of culture. It's the only culture. Yes, it's more superior to the African right now because you're dusty. I don't argue this point. In this point, you're right, Kaiser. But you can make those arguments without being stupid, literally.
Bro, you don't even have African clothes being worn by African people across the world.
Yeah, you
two
can make
Nigerians wearing their own clothes doesn't.
So do the Chinese. What's your point? The problem is, Kaiser, you make arguments.
No, but at least the Chinese make their own Western clothes. At least the Chinese make.
What do you mean? I have a traditional clothes in my shrine.
Yeah, and how many days you wear it, right? You having as a shrine.
To special occasion in Nigeria.
You see
so
what I
do
mean,
Chinese
right?
people. What you talking about?
At least the Chinese make their own.
So do the Japanese Kaiser. Your arguments, if you want to make specific arguments to Africa, just say we have no cohesion. Just say that.
At least
I think he's saying Africa is not industrialized, but you see, you guys are fighting the same point. There is no. You guys are just coping. There is no other culture. Western civilization is a mono civilization. It's a monoculture. Now you're debating on who makes Western clothes. Do we make Western clothes in our own lands, or do the others make Western clothes? You see how retarded this convo is?
No. Once again, Kaiser's entire argument is always Africans are dusty. And most of the times, I'm not disagreeing with him. But the problem is, he always makes it in a white supremacist viewpoint. You can't just say the facts, man. Like, the facts are not very beautiful. Why you must always cope? Like, clothes, come on, Kaiser. Close. So
no, because Keizo's tied to the fact that there's Snake Man. Look, you guys are both coping. You are coping that I don't know what your cope is, but Keizo's cope is that there's Western civilization and there's Eastern civilization, and these are competing civilizations, or they feed one another. And I don't know what your argument is. You're just refuting whatever Keizo says. But either way, there's only one civilization. There's Western civilization.
Yeah,
there's Western monoculture. Now you guys are debating on do we make Western clothes in our own lands, or do we have to import these Western
you must
clothes?
understand. You
What
must
difference
understand.
does it make?
No. So retard talking points come all from Kaiser. I never make a talking point. All those talking points you say is Kaiser's talking point. What I'm saying is, if the most Easterner, if we go about Eastern civilization, do you know who is the most Easterner civilization in the East? As the dusty Stan countries. They still wear all their clothes. They still have the same tradition like 400 years ago. They're still riding horses. They still live in fucking
No, you know what?
huts.
You forgot one. Yeah, of course. No, never mind. I was going to say you forgot one, but I forgot it's also a Stan.
Since those the
I
most
was going to say Afghanistan.
also other ones are westernized countries with Western lifestyle. The most
Exactly, thank
Eastern
you.
of Eastern
And that's the reason why they are on average wealthier. For you to even become wealthy in today's day and age, you have to adopt Western civilization, you have to adopt Western culture, and you have to adopt Western way of living. So this idea that, there are competing philosophies around the world, there's Eastern civilization and there's Western civilization. Shut the fuck up, bro. It's just Western civilization with a Chinese face on it. That's it.
I mean, yeah, that makes sense because they follow communism. That's Western ideology.
Yeah, but
Bro, even if they don't follow communism, okay, look at Japan. They didn't follow, they didn't adopt communism. Are they not Western civilization?
Yes.
What other alternative is there? Let me ask you guys, what alternative is there? You're all part of Western civilization, bro. You're just the conquered parts of Western civilization. That's it.
And then you know what's funny is that the Americans forced them to become Western. That they was fighting it for the longest time.
Who?
The Japanese.
What?
They set up their borders to everybody else, and they only traded with the Dutch. But then, what's his name, Matthew Perry or whatever? He came in like 18 something, and he forced Japan to trade with the United States because Japan has always been a strategic way to get to China and like the other parts of like the mainland Asia from the Pacific. So Japan has always been important strategically and economically. So in 18 whatever, the Americans forced them to trade with them. Yeah.
What he's saying, Japan always was a target of American influence, like since 1870.
Right.
Look, either way, let's look at countries that weren't even colonized. You can look at Russia. Russia is part of the West. They just don't want to admit it. By the West, I don't mean they're not part of the Western infrastructure, but they are a westernized nation. Like, what are the
they are? Because genetically they are.
Bro, Nylox, Snake Man, this is my point. There is no country on earth today that is a respectable country, that is not living in dust, that is not westernized, that is not part of that doesn't accept Western civilization as its standard of morality.
Do you understand why I'm always so confused when I bring up Russia and Kaizo starts coping and sieving? And I don't understand because it's the same Western master. But the problem I have is Russia and the rest of the West have is basically old Western ideology, authoritarianism, try to have inland trading, and also dusty stuff against the new Western ideology who came out of colonialism. So it's basically a fight between Russia and the rest of the West. Basically, old style against new style.
Yeah, true. I just want to MTK, bro. All civilizations outside of the Western civilization are dead. Only the West remains. It has completely monopolized the earth. You're living under Western civilization, whatever part of the earth you go to right now, unless you go to the Amazon jungle or something.
Yeah, but that's
technically,
the jungle. That's just dust.
I mean, technically, if you want to go to the east, there's a Dalai Lama, but he is a bitch of China. So
yeah, who gives a fuck? The Dalai Lama's a cup, bro.
I know.
Yeah, but look, guys. Okay, so we're all in agreement that there is no civilization apart from West, and Western civilization is now the Earthling civilization. If the Martians come here, that's the only thing they'll see, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's the only things I see, but we see too that we are everlasting fractured. Like. Don't think those Martian invasion movies are 100% accurate. But probably what happens, there are always some traitors. That's what I always say. When the Martians are coming, be assured, when those ships land and they open up, you will see a Nigerian holding some Martian currency in their hand, shaking their hand and saying, kill this one. These are the strong ones.
Stickman, are you really arguing how we're going to be invaded by Martians?
Yeah. I mean, we already had a Hotep on. I don't go absolute insane.
Which one was the worst one, though? When the man said Western civilization currently is being run by black people, or when he said, or the Hotep that said Africans were part of the Roman Empire. Africans civilized northern England. Okay, so which one? If you had to vote, which one was worse?
You must understand, for some reason, and I don't know why, Hotep thinks that how West Africa is the West African region, on the map, we're somehow part of the Roman Empire, just because they sent 3 legions down there to try to see what is down there. Like, trading doesn't mean that we're part of the empire. Like technically, Rome couldn't have governed those regions.
Well, here's the idea.
That same logic. Africa is now part of America because of what do they call that? Is it AMERCOM or something that trains? No, is it AMERCOM or something? The American alliance with African militaries. It's not even a real alliance, but pretty much they train military soldiers. I guess the Sahel is part of the America now. No, I'm saying the Sahel is part of America now because all of these Sahel military coups are being done by soldiers that were trained by America.
Man, that is a retardation. Soldiers who were trained by Americans rebel in the name of Russia. Just let that sink in.
Snake Man, but this is how you know Western civilization is truly not even a dominant civilization, but the only civilization. Because all of these dusties that somehow don't like Western civilization, but they still want to claim it. They all want to say, "Oh, we contributed to it. We are part of it. If it wasn't for us, Western civilization wouldn't even exist." Blah 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 blah.
Yeah,
It's a
but
religion,
but it's
bro.
true.
It's a
Yeah,
religion.
but it's true though, Nihilatic, and this is why you have to seek knowledge, my brother. Because when we're dealing with ancient Britain, right, early Britons by Alfred J. Church, right, in his book, those who can get it, it makes it perfectly clear that there were two races of inhabitants of the British Isles. One was the Silures, and the description of the Silures that they look like the Aborigines in Australia with curly hair and dark skin. And the others were the Gauls who came afterwards who had red hair, tall in stature. So we know that these
Can
black
we call them
people.
the Celts?
Okay,
Can we call them
bro,
Celts?
where are you from?
Hold
Where's your
on, brother,
ancestry from? West
hold on,
African?
brother. 'Cause we're bringing proof, brother. All due respect here. So we know that the Stonehenge, etc., was created by black people, right? And we forget as well,
Oh my
brother.
God, bro.
Of
You
course,
probably a Caribbean, bro. You
brother,
probably from the
brother,
Caribbean.
He is Caribbean.
brother.
He is,
No.
he's
Hold
Jamaican.
on, brother, brother.
Let
Hold on,
Kale
Everybody
talk.
was black.
Before,
Let Kale talk.
before we get excited, did I not just bring a proof of the early Britons?
Oh, yeah, you're right. Now
I gave you the reference. Hold
Yes,
on,
you're right.
brother.
You're
I
right.
gave you the
My bad.
reference and the book. You see what I'm saying in that, right? And we
You are
keep
not those
forgetting.
groups.
We keep forgetting,
Nylon.
brother. I
Please,
never
Nylon.
said that I was from that group, brother. You see, on synchronization, I didn't claim I'm from that group. What I'm saying is genetically dominant black people settled in Europe first. Now, the second thing is that we're forgetting that Europe is named after the black queen Europa. You see what I'm saying? That they named it after the black queen from Nigeria called Europa. So we know already the Western civilization was birthed by African people, whether we like it or not.
Kyle, I have a question. Hold on, Nylon. I have a question. Are you sure? Because I know from which sources are you talking about, but it may be a translation issue. In German, it's calls them not the Gauls, they calls them the Celts. Are you sure it was a Gaulish group? Because in my book it talks about some more Hispanic Celts who came over. You know, the ones who
He's talking about the people who settled even before the Celts, man.
Yeah, that
no,
exactly.
it's not the group
Yeah.
who came after those people.
Yeah,
People. In my books, they're always described as the Celts, not specifically the Gauls. Like I just
Okay,
want to know.
so what I'm saying is, brother, after the Gauls who were red hair, the Celts came over. You see the Vikings,
Man,
etc.
they're talking.
They
He was talking
came over.
before even the Celts came over.
Yeah, before the Celts and
He's talking
those who are
pre, bro.
Oh yeah,
Right.
the original Celts was black, right?
the original ones were. But what I'm saying is that we did
Oh, the original
contribute
Vikings were
to.
black too, right?
Some of them were, some of them weren't. Yeah.
See, this
I thought
see,
the
this,
landmass.
this is the problem, man. It's a never-ending cycle.
I thought the
Brother.
landmass of Scandinavia
Brother.
was settled by Asiatic people, like Samis.
James, you
Yeah.
know, according to this logic, black people created every civilization because the out of Africa migration literally created every migration group that you see outside of Africa now. So
It's a
according to his
religion for
logic,
them.
Brother.
exactly,
we're
bro.
dealing-
It's so retarded. It's like
Brother,
It's a
when we're
religion.
it's so
dealing with
retarded, bro.
brother, when we're dealing with Sheikh Anta Diop's book, brother, the origin of civilization came from Africa. We cannot exclude that was settled everywhere, brother. What are we
He
what are
tried to
we
do it through
doing,
linguistics, and he did not know linguistics, bro.
brother?
He was
What are we doing,
comparing ancient
brother?
Egyptian
Brother,
into the
brother,
Arabic
brother,
language that his people picked up.
brother. We are the oldest people on the planet. We have proof and evidence, brother. We're not doing pseudo, we're doing proof and evidence. Now, I'm not saying that I am the Asiatic man. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is genetically dominant people settled everywhere on the planet before ice people, mountain people, and sand people. The sun people, known as African people, are the oldest human beings. That's all I'm saying. And we have proof that when it comes to
He's
Europe,
not wrong. Like the
right?
Sentinel
when-
Island people, who are all related to the Asians.
Right.
They're all like little pygmy people. Sentinel Islands are little pygmy.
Right. And bearing in mind, in Sweden, there was a documentary about the dark-skinned Vikings, and there was a protest, and the director, which they hide these things anyway, gave the proof that the original Swedish, they were black people. So we have the proof and evidence and books that we settled everywhere. It's just that a lot of us gave up hope in that we can win this war against white supremacy. And the Western civilization, Nailati, whether you like it or not, especially the royal family, it's got all Ethiopian dress code in there. All of it is Ethiopian.
Oh,
do you understand?
my God,
all these,
this guy.
Brother, you got to get knowledge, brother. You got to get knowledge, brother. You got to get the knowledge. It's all African, brother. All of it's African. All of it.
Look, bro, this is the problem. No Ethiopian is claiming this.
This is are you talking about old Ethiopia? Are you talking about old Ethiopia?
Snake man, who cares, bro? He's a dusty. Who cares, bro?
No, I just want
to know. He doesn't even know what Ethiopia is referring to. Ethiopia didn't even exist, you retard. What the fuck?
Brother, we're not, brother. With you,
what is Ethiopia?
Right? You are the one, brother. You're the one.
What is Ethiopia?
You're the one that's discombobulated, brother. Because you should understand where the language that we're using. We're using a language, brother, that is comprehension for the massive to understand. When I'm referring to Ethiopia, we know that Ethiopia came from the Greeks. We know this, brother. Just like the pyramids, right, is a Greek name. What I'm saying is the whole Western civilization, right, has African influences. All of it does. Ethiopia, West Africa, Nubia, all
that.
Called
Abyssinia. Could we know it's called Abyssinia?
No, that's why I asked which Ethiopia, because old Ethiopia described by the Greeks were Sudan, basically. And new Ethiopia is today Ethiopia or Abyssinia. That's why.
Right. Wait. Snake man, this is the problem, bro. These guys, first of all, you know the Dravidian Indian can look at these black civilizations that Kale likes to claim. And those guys, those black civilizations, ancient, quote-unquote, black civilization, quote-unquote, are closer to what the Dravidians look like today than what Kale looks like today. So I don't even know why he's claiming them. Like, these guys, apart from a bit of melanin on this game, even phenotypically look like the average Indian. They didn't look like you. So what the fuck are you on about, bro?
Brother, did I say that they look like me, bro? Brother, this is what I'm saying about the 3 5G frequencies mashing. Did I say they look like me, brother? Hold on, brother. Did I say that they look like me, brother? Brother, did I say they look like me, brother? Right, because the title of the show is Did Black People? When we use the word black, brother, it's consciousness, color, right? Culture and connection to the creator. It's those who are genetically dominant. That's what the political term means. They don't mean that we all have the same features, but we're talking about genetically dominant. Black people settled in that region first. They settled in that region first.
Black doesn't exist, bro.
Genetical dominance does exist, brother. That's why racism is upon all black people. Whether you got straight nose, broad nose, thin lips, thick lips, curly hair, straight hair, genetically dominant, war is on these people, and I'm from that community.
I just wanted to say, Nylord, don't get mad at Kale. Kaiser let him in. He is a mastermind behind this.
It's just so dumb, bro. Like, these guys, at one time, they'll tell you Western civilization is evil, blah, 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 blah. The next day, oh, we actually invented Western civilization. If it wasn't for us, Western civilization wouldn't exist. Shut the fuck up, bro.
We know already that the Romans learned civilization, brother, right? We know that they learned it from the Greeks learned it from the Ethiopians. Without us, there's no Western civilization.
That's what you're saying.
I don't understand why are we getting angry over accepting that the ice people need sun people in order for them to navigate on the planet. But you, because you're in love with the ice people,
why would they need you?
You think that they're saviors, and in actuality, they're your enemies.
Why do they need you? What exactly do they need you for right now?
What do they need us? Well, first of all, brother, they need our resources. That's one thing for sure. They
but they don't need you. They need the resources under the ground.
They don't need our intellectual. So why do they need intellectual mind? They need our intellectual mind. Brother.
Oh my God, your intellectual mind.
You're probably wearing a Chinese shirt. Probably wearing a Chinese shirt.
Our intellectual mind.
On the white man's internet, everything, bro. Like everything that you are doing right now, exactly, provided by other groups of people, and not by black people.
where's the blacknet that you're using right now? Are you using blacknet?
Brother, right? Are we forgetting Philip Imagwali, who helped the internet to go faster? Are we gonna forget him, brother, from Nigeria? Hold on. Are we gonna forget him? Are we gonna forget about him, brother?
Even tell you that he didn't. He will tell you that he did not create nothing for the internet. He just created a computer that goes really fast.
Brother, no, brother.
Y'all made up that shit.
He helped the internet to be more faster. Are we gonna dismiss that? Is that what we're gonna do, brother? We're gonna dismiss that.
My problem is entire ideology.
James, this is the problem. James, this is the problem, bro. The white man can invent the car, and the black man can invent the windshields on the car. And these guys are going to say, oh, if it wasn't for the black man who invents the windshield, the car wouldn't be working the way it is today.
The Iceman didn't invent no car. The Iceman didn't invent no car. The black man did.
Here's the black man, but the car obviously comes from the cart, from the wheel in the chariot, from the chariot. But chariots come from Western, Central Asia, because where they had horses were not domesticated in Africa. How's it coming from the black man, bro?
James, did the black man also invent
brother, are you all right, brother? Don't you know that the Nubians, brother, were very vast when it came to bow and arrows and the wheels and that, brother?
Did not originate in Africa. Originated in Central Asia.
What are we doing, brother?
Even the historians.
We don't know basic history.
Indo-European migration into Anatolia, Egyptians didn't have chariot. They literally copied that because they waged war against them, and then they took it.
Exactly, and that's where the Nubians get it from. They get it from the Egyptians. Egyptians get it from the Anatolians. Can we stop playing games, man? You know where the car comes from. We didn't invent the wheel. Stop playing games.
The Nubians, brother. The Nubians are the ones that invented the wheel, brother. We know this. I don't understand why are we putting Anatolia when Anatolia, right, was influenced by Nubia. Why are we arguing something, brother?
Hold on. This
is why we can never. James, no, Snakeman, look. Snakeman, hold up.
Chariot, not the wheel. The wheel is older.
What? Okay, James, we just need to stop this. How did the black man invent the car? James, we're asking you, how did the black man invent the car? This is the most retarded. You say the Nubians invented the wheel, so therefore the black man invented the car. This is the most retarded jump in logic, bro. Like the fact that
they do the same thing with the light bulb. They do the same thing with the traffic light. They do the same thing with the gas mask. They do the same thing. They'll take one little part of it that improved it and say that they invented the whole thing, even though there's a history.
Thank you.
The Iceman, brother, stole African people's invention. The patent office, he stole it.
The black man
copyright law, bro.
So because he hold on. So because he stole it, we're not going to believe anything that they created. We're not going to believe anything that the non-Africans say that they created, because they're known for lying. You see, they're known for lying.
Copyright, bro.
Even with copyright, you can still steal. You can still take an idea and just change it up a bit. There's no such thing as stealing an idea.
According to who, my brother? According to who?
How did the black man invent the car, bro? We're not going to let you jump this topic. How did he invent the car?
What do you mean? How did the black man invent the? Go and read it. Why are you asking me how he
how did he invent the car, bro?
I've told you. We have. Hold on. We've told you already. When it comes to the wheel and when it comes to creating things out of shapes, etc., this goes back to Nubia. And you're asking me how he created the car. Of course, when we're dealing with the shapes, etc., that came out of Nubia, obviously it's going to be passed on to create the car. What are we doing? You're asking me these foolish questions, right?
James, this is the most retarded shit on earth. So the white man has to create the combustion engine, all of the essential items to create the car. And because the shape of the car was invented in Nubia, now the black man gets the credit. This is the most, bro. Oh my God.
I explain the logic.
Well, he's in the shape.
Because black people are very old. We invented what I mean is we invented many proto things, many first things like shape,
But
color.
that's the theology, though.
Yeah. But you must understand. Because we invented the most basic rudimentary things. Because we are the oldest. Everything that come after that, even we don't have any kind of physical didn't do any physical into inventions that came after those basic things. It's still our invention because we did the first thing.
Snake Man, James, you know what's so funny? The first man to create the paper plane also created the plane itself. He should be responsible for creating the plane.
But Nylon, we created the paper.
Right.
No, the Chinese created
paper, yeah.
So if you create the paper, which then makes the paper plane, which then is the design for the plane, then you invented everything, bro. You're the genius.
Yes.
So here's the thing. So what he's arguing is something called hyperdiffusion, saying that one source is the reason why you have everything else coming from this one source. So that throws out the window independent discovery, independent invention, independent all this other shit. So when they say like agriculture popped up in multiple places at different times, and it was discovered independently from each other. Because you're not going to say that the ancient Mesopotamians taught the the South Americans or the Native Americans how to farm. You're not going to do that. You're not going to tell people that Chinese writing comes from ancient Egyptian writing. You're not going to do that. It's completely different systems.
No. I can counter that. James, I can counter that. Because our ancestors migrated there and they evolved from us, means that the first farmers owe us.
That's the Hotep. That's the Hotep theology. That's what that is. Everybody, the first Chinese black, the first Japanese black, first Indian black, first everybody black. Everybody is the same black West African. Everybody is the same black thing. Black. Everybody black. And then where these mysterious light-skinned people come from, they don't know. Some niggas say they came from space. This is how crazy it gets.
No. We blacks invented the white people.
Well, but then
you know what's so funny?
But they didn't say that the white people come from
you know
the black
what's so funny?
people. The white
James,
people
you know
black
what's so funny?
It was the problem.
James, you know what's so funny? I was actually looking at these ancient quote unquote black people that Caleb's talking about. These people look more identical to the Dravidian Indians that you look at today. But in today's day and age, these so-called pro-blacks will never call these Dravidian Indians quote unquote black.
But here's the thing,
Asiatic black man. Asiatic black man.
Here's the thing, Nylatic. When we're dealing with the destruction of the black civilization by Chancellor William, right, a very, very great book, it tells you that the Asians and the Middle Easterns, their agricultural science deflated, and they had to go into Nubia and places like that to learn the agriculture science in their lands. So as far as I'm concerned, without the African people, there is no understanding of agricultural science. What are we doing once again? If you don't believe me, go read the destruction of black civilization.
Basically, what he's using is elder argument. Basically, I'm older than
you. Do you see this?
And I did things before
so the Chinese and the other civilizations, they knew how to do agriculture, and then they forgot, and then they had to come back to Nubia to learn. This is crazy.
No, it's not crazy. It's facts, though. It's evidence. When we're dealing with Socrates and we're dealing with Plato and all them, they had to go to Nubia to build up Western civilization. I don't understand how you don't know these things.
The Greeks are not as old as Mesopotamia and the Nile Valley civilization in China. Like Greek sources are literally invalid. They're not old enough. The civilization is not old enough.
Snake Man, you don't understand. These people, they're time travelers. They went back in time, and then they got the information, and then they came back in time.
But Nylatic, when
didn't you know time travel was something, bro? The Nubians invented time travel, don't you know?
Snakes, man. When we're dealing with Mesopotamia, right, we cannot forget the influence of Kush. You see, brother, the influence of the Kushites that made Mesopotamia prosperous. This is what we're forgetting, brother, which returns back to Nubia again. Because when we're dealing with the Mandinka, you know, Snakes, man, bearing in mind, you know, the Sahel area, brother, all them, you know, all them there, brother, whether it be, you know, all that is the ancient descendants of the ancient Egyptians, all of them are. You see what I'm saying? Remember, West Africa was classed as Western Nubia. So we know already, without Tarseti Nubia, there is no Western civilization. I don't have to lie on there. The evidence, go to the London Museum if you get a chance to. It's all in there. And those who know, they got the books that without Nubia, African people, there's no Western civilization. And this hurts Nilotic because he loves ice people.
I just wanted to say, Nilotic, I'd say now in more intellectual terms, in ancient Mesopotamia, there were stories about black people who had beef with those Caucasian-looking people. There are stories about them. Now, who's there were? There are 1,000 names. I think one of those was Guru Manta or something like that, like not the Garamantians, but also the Guru, some ancient and those Mesopotamians said that there was a descendants of basically Kush or Egypt, one of the both. Like he has points. The problem for me is till now, and maybe he has also sources because I only operate in German sources. It is not proven what kind of weight they had in those civilizations. But yes, there were some groups of black people before the there were some like straight up from East Africa or North Africa. There were some groups. No. But once again, my problem is all of them, all those ancient people we're talking about, they're lost.
Snake Man, did the black man invent the fire?
But brother, we're talking about
the civilization.
We're talking about military science, brother.
If the black man didn't invent fire, all these civilizations would have died anyway. So give us all the credit. We invented everything because we invented the fire.
But brother, Snakes, man, you're talking about military science, brother. We know that unfortunately, due to our disorganization, that we were conquered. I thought we were talking about did Western civilization get all their ideas from the African, and that's true. You see, but if we're talking about why we lost, we know why we lost, brother. It's because of our disorganization. We assumed we're the same as ice people, mountain people, and sand people. We're not the same, brother. They operate in a different temperament. So naturally, you're going to lose. They do it when you're in the same religion as them. They do it when you're at workplaces, those who have their business or not. They never change their temperament. So if they're always going to have that same code of conduct for their temperament, brother, and we're saying that we're multicultural with some form of code, we're always going to lose. That's facts. That's basic political science. You understand? That's why we're losing.
That is not our argument. Like you see, I fought those arguments with Kaiser, but I didn't go so far back. I just have the problems that Kaiser always has specific, use universal terms like universal logic. So everyone, that applies to everyone equally, to the Asian, to the Caucasian, to the Negro. Don't get mad. It's applied universally, but he says, okay, also negative stuff, what they quote unquote in his worldview, what is negative, that applies specifically only for the blacks. And the entire argument we had is that when we use Kaiser's logic and look how the world is, it applies to everyone, literally everyone. And that is mostly what we argue here. Kaiser has some stupid, backwards logic and tries to basically come to the outcome Africans are dusty. That is basically, he has already a conclusion and he tries to use his backward logic to come to that conclusion.
Well, I don't know what intention brother Kaizo is doing. I believe he has to be a certain way because he's running the show. But we know already, brother, and the non-Africans know already that the Africans are the most intelligent beings on the planet. The problem with African people, we are just disorganized. You see what I'm saying? And that's our problem. That's our problem.
I even said that to Kaiser. One point you can maybe give the African as a whole, all African people, is we have a lack of cohesion. But that is the only point he never will discuss. That is a funny thing. I gave him 1 point, but he is not interested. He wants to say Africans are dusty because genetically we are low IQ.
No, absolutely not, man. I don't know what brother Kaiser said. That's false, man. What I will say is, brother, there's a thing you've probably heard called ethnoscience. And for those who don't understand what ethnoscience is, it's a study of how different cultures of people develop with different forms of knowledge and belief, and focuses on the historical contributions different cultures of people have made to science. So my thing is, brother, is that if you have a conquered mindset, because the word that we use on synchronize is when you're not operating for the best interests of African people, right? You're going to have an ice mindset towards civilization. And if you notice, brother, now they're using certain words that we came from apes with different species, etc., which we used to be called these monstrous names, and we used to get beaten up at. So what I'm saying is, brother, is that because there's ethnoscience, we have to control the narrative. I'm not saying that the Iceman hasn't developed inventions. I'm not saying that, or the mountain or the sand. We know this. However, they cannot say that they didn't get their influences from the Sun people. This is a problem I have with non-African people. It's like they believe that they did it all on their own. Without us, they wouldn't be able to build certain things. Do you understand? Without the African woman and the African man's mindset, there's no inventions, brother. That's the only problem. That's why I came on the panel, because it's like, yes, we have the proof and evidence. Western civilization was birthed by African excellence. They know this. It's in the European libraries, etc. You understand? We know this already. But when they try and say that it's not that, and say that we're low IQ, etc., then this is where we have to refute it. That's all I'm saying.
No, but the problem is, if you bring up those points and says maybe you are different, the argument you will hear very often on Kaiser, especially the ones who are neoliberal or liberal,
right?
They say it does not matter because right now it has no influence. Like they're literally saying history, we don't care because right now it has no positive influence on us. So if you come with those ideas like yours, in Kaiser's channel, and it's a heated debate, be not surprised when the majority will say you are not lying, but we don't care.
Right. Now, here's the thing, brother, right? As a Pan-Africanist, one of the principles is self-determination. Yes, we should know about our history, but we should modify it to better our people. We have businesses, brother. So why? Here's what's very strange in that, right? For a person, an African descendant, right, to just focus on how great we was and not do anything, that's unsynchronized, because you have to compete with non-African people who has capitalized on our excellence. So you have to modify economics. You have to modify and improve science. You have to modify. You have to, I believe in all them things without a shadow of a doubt. You know what I mean? We should be inventing things and.
Be careful, Kale. Be careful, Kale. Right. He is the king of the I don't care about history. Caesar.
Okay. But I do understand, Snakes, man, why some of us are hesitant, because some of us rely on that and don't want to put the work in. And I get that. But at the same time, you need the history, right, to know where we came from, and you need the drive to modify, to make things modern. You see, and that's what non-African people, the Chinese, what have they done? They just modified African science, right? Capitalized on what's economic and made it grow. I don't disagree in them things at all, because we're supposed to modify things, right, for the best interest of our people. What I disagree with, brother, is non-African people using an unethical code of conduct to subjugate African people. That's what I disagree with, and I'm supposed to. You're not going to have your group oppressing our group, resources, etc., right, and then acting like we ain't nothing. So that's where Pan-Africanists refute it, use strategies and tactics to gather the people, use our money, etc., to build. But I do understand why some of us do rely on the past, because we are, unfortunately, we're hopeless and we don't want to put the work in. So I do get why there will be arguments, all due respect to you.
Okay, Caesar, after Kay brought you the light, the understanding and the knowledge, do you accept it that maybe, just listening to some historical things can help?
No.
You still don't care?
What should I care about?
I'm just an acolyte. Let Kale talk about what you should care about.
The non-African people. It's like, stop.
Now, I believe what we learned from today is that, we've got a serious problem as African people. We have got people who literally, promoting and proud of being sellout coons, basically. We have got proud coons,
Wait, what's wrong with selling out?
No, he's right. Big up some brother Asketi. He's right.
We have
Asketi's
got
right.
proud coons 2023 today. Literally here, laughing as well. The worst thing about it, you don't even see what you're doing to yourself, that you're even laughing, that you think that when you talk like this, that other people support you or they're gonna go against Kale, or it's so dumb, bro. We listen back at yourself.
Caesar,
Bro, don't you feel shame though? Don't you feel shame that you want to call yourself African as well? That's the worst thing about it. You want to be.
What happens, Caesar, when Igbo successfully tries to take over Nigeria, but then also little countries help those we try to overthrow, and now the situation doesn't look so good. Would you sell out?
Yeah. See, the problem with Africa is that we didn't sell out.
Shit.
The problem is we didn't sell out enough. That's the problem, because we didn't really sell out the right way. That's another problem. We didn't sell out the right way. When we sold out, we sold people for umbrellas, trying to figure out umbrella technology. We should have sold for better stuff. So that's the problem. It's not that we sold out; it's that we didn't sell out correctly. That's what people don't understand.
Okay, basically it didn't sell out correctly. So basically, you want to carry on. What you're basically saying is that enough damage hasn't happened to the African people. You're not happy that we haven't suffered enough. That's what you're basically saying. African people haven't suffered enough. We should have given all into the white man and his wife. Right?
Caesar, you're moving on. Synchronize, man. That's on synchronize what you said there, Caesar, brother Caesar, man.
Let me check Kaiser for a second. There's no such thing as African civilization, because the term African is made up. It was made by the white man. There's no such thing as Africa. Okay?
Hold on, brother. I have to correct you there, brother. Because Africa comes from the Nile, brother. It comes from the Kemetic alphabet, brother. It comes from there, right? We know Ivan Sertima, one of the great black historians, have broken it down. Africa from God's spirit, and they found an older name, brother, Ifruka, which means birth of man. Brother, what are we doing, brother?
Let me tell you.
We are before the ice people, brother. We're before the sand, the mountain. Brother, we predate them in all things, brother. We produce them. And you're gonna say that the ice man invented the name Africa, when Africa's older than Afro-Asiatic, Europe, Ethiopia, all those names, what the Greeks came up with, it's older than that, brother. And there's a name older than Africa. Go on, my brother. Go on.
Let me school you guys for a second. So let's just go with this made-up idea of Africa. Let's go with that for a second, right? If you pinpoint different places on this Africa thing, they're more aligned with non-Africans because of cultural similarities, religious similarities, even language similarities. Look at the so-called North Africans. They were even a part of Rome, while the Southern Africans were busy running around naked in the forests, right? You go to East Africa, some of them were more aligned with the Christian Western civilizations, while others were more aligned with the Islamic civilizations. You have countries like Somalia and countries like Senegal that have been Muslim for 1,000 years. They're not African, they're Islamic. So when you guys try to Africa around,
brother, all due respect to your brother Caesar, you see what you're doing now, brother.
I just want to say something. 2 seconds, brother. Let me just say something. You see the way these people change their tone and the way they're
very unsynchronized.
They're just unsynchronized. I think what it is, bro. When you used to be like a nerd in class and back in the days, you never used to have any attention, right? This is what you do, right? You try to, even though what they're trying to bully you in a way and make you look like stupid, like you have lower class than them, right? But it doesn't work, bro. So that's all I'm trying to say. But I see the tactic.
Because brother Caesar, you're mixing religion, brother, with the oldest people.
No,
you see, because Hold on, brother. All due respect to you, brother. All due respect to you, brother. Because you just mentioned Somalia, but brother, you're forgetting the Aksumite Empire, brother. Aksumite Empire wasn't great because of Christianity. It was great because they understood political and military science. They understood that, brother. You understand? So whether we have the religion or not back then, we still were on code to defeat enemies. The problem is now, brother, we became too immature when it comes to the religion. You cannot say, oh, we're Islamic and Christian and things. That's got nothing to do with the civilized. Brother, these things came out of Africa, brother. It belongs to us anyway. You understand?
100%, bro.
Right. You know what I mean? Because before Islam, the Somalians, brother, they were worshipping the ancestors. You see what I'm saying in that, brother? So why are you saying that 1,000 years, brother? We're older than these religions. We understand. We understand, brother. We understand that monotheism, right? Because I understand certain things. We understand that the Most High, He prefers monotheism, because monotheism is a way that makes you give the Creator His rights, right, without thinking about your selfish needs. You see what I'm saying in that, right? I get that. I totally get it. I understand it, right? However, we also had other spiritual systems, right, before so-called people changing things when it comes to the Abrahamic faith. The Abrahamic faith, brother, is African spirituality anyway, because it's from Africa.
I'm
You see
just
what I'm
trying
saying?
to let you know that all these
Right.
things you
Go
guys
on,
call
go on.
African aren't actually African, right? The Africa's a made-up term. There's no such thing as Africa, okay? Look at all these other civilizations that we're talking about. They have something that unifies them: a language, a culture, a religion. You can't just because it's all
Everybody, look, nobody agrees that we were called Africans before this. We understand that the white man came in and said, we should call this Africa. We all fully understand that. But you cannot deny that,
No, brother,
people had great
brother,
civilization. But hold on, bro, because the guy earlier just said something about Somali people, right? And thank you, brother Kel, for putting him correct, right? You're 100% right, brother. Look, even before Islam, Somali people knew that we had a common goal as African. You know what I'm saying? Because this thing called Wak, I don't know, Kel, you heard about Wak, right? This ancient Egyptian
Of
ancestors.
course, I've heard about Wak. Of course, I heard about Wak. Of course.
This was not just for us. The same time, maybe a couple of years after that, 10 to 15 years to 50 years after that, the Maasai people were doing the same thing. The people in Kenya, the people all the way in Uganda. It was not just us, So when you're talking about these people are Islamic nation, how come before Islam in Africa, especially Somalia, it wasn't just a Somali religion? It was called Kemet.
How many years ago was that?
Hold on, bro. Kemet. Am I right, brother Kel? Was this called Kemet?
How many years ago?
Are the Maasai still doing Kemet?
Because,
Right?
because the Middle East was classed as Northeast Africa. It was classed as Second Egypt. So yeah.
So, bro,
That's the whole Maghreb.
just because
Considered part of the Middle
the
East.
white man don't want you to believe that you were anything before this, then that's up to you, bro. Just keep believing in that. But we know where we come from, innit? We
For
know where we come
1,000 years. Can we talk about the last 1,000 years, guys, please?
1,000 years. Okay, let me tell you. 1,000 years ago, what are the Somali people doing? They came out with the Frankenstein. They had one of the biggest world trade, and they were trading. They were doing the most trade in the world. What's Somalia? That area,
Was
at
it
that time, at the Sultan and that 1300
civilization?
Mansa Musa, so only less than 600 years ago. Great nation, that's the hell. He had the whole thing locked down over there. So, bro, when you're talking about, you want us to be downgraded, but I'm not like your friend, the River Nile crocodile. I'm not like him, bro. You know what I'm saying? I'm not like him.
Musa is like 700 years ago, bro.
But the guy, brother, he said 1,000 years ago. What his point is, Africa has not been great for the last 1,000 years. That's what his point is completely. I'm just trying to say, but look, if you look at it, not even 1,000 years ago, 1,600 Somali people enslaved the whole Portuguese. When they came in to invade and Mombasa, Kenya. What happened to the Portuguese people? We fought them and enslaved them. No, but the point is, bro, the point is, Africa has never been great. You said this clearly. We were running around naked. We haven't done nothing. You know what I'm saying? That's why. Exactly, but we clearly hurt you, man. But go on anyway.
African civilization. There's Islamic civilization, There's maybe there's a couple dusty tribes that didn't even have civilization, really. I don't think there's any religions that even came out of that part of Africa. So we have the Islamic civilizations, we have Western, we have Eastern, we have Hindu, we have the Russian. There's no such thing as African civilization because Africa never built any kind of. I mean, I don't even know what Africa is. It made up by the.
Tell us the book. Where did you learn this from? Where did you learn it from? Where do you get your knowledge from? Tell us. I want to know where his knowledge is based on, bro. He's coming from Scandinavia. He's been taught to self-hate himself. You know when you come from certain part of Europe, yeah? That school, yeah? This is what they teach you, self-hate.
Because we have our black historians. We have our black historians that's broken it down that Africa is older than the term Asia, Europe, Arab. All them names, it's older than that, and there's a name older than Africa. So I don't understand. What are we doing? What are we doing right now? This makes no sense.
Isn't the word Africa?
No. These black scholars were lazy as fuck, man. They were lazy as hell. Africa, we don't know the origin of Africa. We just know the first people to use it in history and write it down were the Romans. That's as far as we know. We don't know who they're referring to. Some people think they're referring to a tribe called the Afri. Some people think they're referring to something else. But what we got on record is that the only people who wrote it down first, the earliest that we have on record that we know of today, is the Romans.
No, brother, we don't. We have
just
more
a Roman word.
No, brother, we have more.
Okay, you said Chancellor Williams. Where did Chancellor Williams get?
Brother, I've just told you, brother. I've just told you.
Where did he find it?
Are you gonna let me finish, brother? Or wait, are you gonna let me finish? Because last time I thought there's only one Kale, so Kale should be speaking for Kale, right? So what I'm saying is, brother, there are collective evidence by Ivan Sertima, certified black historian, right? That some would say that Ifruka came about by the Afro-Yemenis, right? That called North Africa that, right? Some say that the Romans came, etc. But the strongest of it is that it is a Kemetic alphabet, you see, right? And then a name older than that, Ifruka, which means birth of man, is older than Kemet. Now we know, brother, that Nubia is older than Kemet. We know that the Nile Valley alphabet is older. So we know that the Romans, brother, did not invent or give the name Africa. It predates them. All due respect to you.
I'm just trying to let you know.
So he gave his source. Wait. So he gave his source as some Yemeni people. That's what you're telling me.
Brother, I've just told you, brother, right? There were sources saying that it came from the Arabs. Some say it came from Rome, etc. But the strongest, and I gave the source of Ivan Sertima, right? Who certified.
Where was his source? Where did he get it from? Where does he say in his book that he got it from? He has some good sources too in academic work. He has to provide where he's getting his source from.
Brother, as I tried to explain to you already, brother, Ivan Sertima studied in Tarseti, which is known as Nubia. He's been in Egypt, etc., brother, and he's formulated the proof and evidence. You see? So what I'm saying is,
what book is it? I will look it up.
Brother,
what book is it?
Brother, they found a name older than Africa, which means Ifruka, right? Which means birth of man. So I don't understand why are we, brother, debating on these
Ivan
things,
Van
brother?
Sertima book is it?
When it's
That's your reference.
I will dolmetsch it. This black historian went to Sudan or Egypt, maybe both, basically nice civilizations, and studied their culture and find out that there's an old word in the old language that sounds like Africa, Ifruka. Do you not understand it?
No, I get that point, but how do we know Africa refers to like a land? How do we know that? What if he just found a word that just sounded like Africa? He's saying that it refers to this. What proof does he have that it referred to a landmass, and particularly the landmass within Africa, which is that we currently understand as Africa today? How did he determine that? How did he decipher that? And what book are you talking about that you're referencing? Ain't nobody got that?
I mean, they don't have the answers. Again, I just want to stress this point. This whole Africa concept was made up by outsiders. There's no such thing as Africa, which is the reason why there's no African civilizations to answer the question originally, right? That's the reason why there's no such thing as Africa. There's Islamic, there's Zulu. There's Africans still haven't even made an identity. What they call Africans haven't even made an all-encompassing identity yet. So there's no such thing as African. Yeah, they should maybe make a new thing. If I have to give advice to the Africans, my tribe, I don't really align all the way with this whole African idea. I'm more aligned with other cultures. So yeah.
All I know, we come from Western Central Africa, bro, and they were not united.
Even this whole Western Central, what does that even mean? Western Central Africa. I mean, there's so many different kingdoms and tribes and ethnic groups. Why are we trying to group it all together? What is that going to accomplish? And they're so different.
I'm talking about geographical area. All right, I understand that the Yoruba, Fulani, Igbo, also all that. They're all different cultures. They speak different languages. But I'm talking about a geographical area.
Okay, I mean, by that argument, China and the UK, China and France are on the same block, right? Why don't we just group them together?
They're not on the same block. Stop being crazy.
No, what do you mean? Europe and Asia are like made up. I mean, it's the same landmass.
Yeah, it's the same landmass, but we call different things because we speak the English language. And we know what we're talking about when we say that word. So it only refers to one thing.
It's made up. Yeah. It's just
no problem. Okay, you too.
It's just a made up.
No. See, I understand what all words are made up, bro. So we got to get over that. All words are made up. We speak the English language, and in the English language, we use the word Africa to refer to that continent down there. We use the word Europe to refer to the western portion of what I would like to call Western Asia. And then we use Eastern Asia or the Far East to describe places like China, Korea, Japan, Mongolia. That's what the terminology is in this language. All right. We understand what we're talking about when we say those words. I understand that other Africans, that Igbo have Igbo land, that Yoruba have Yoruba land. These are overlapping in the different countries, in the different areas that are not, contingent to like the modern day borders of Nigeria or Togo or Cameroon or whatever. I understand that. But when I say Africa, when I say West and Central Africa, we, as speaking English, understand what location we're talking about. Because it doesn't refer to anywhere else on the earth but that area when I say those words.
I hear what you're saying. I just think when you get rid of these words, you're gonna solve some problems. That's my big stress. I think when you get this whole, I understand the words are made up, and I don't think they make sense. There's no such thing as Africa. Even this West Africa, there's no real such thing as West Africa. Yes, the English language says there's such thing as West Africa, but these are just. It's kind of like how the Europeans used to just call the rest of the world Asia, straight up, which is kind of racist, and they still do it. This is Europe. The rest of the world is just Asia. That's kind of how the whole Africa concept is. Until you start dividing things, it won't make any more sense. There you go. That's my 2 cents. I'll be in the comments.
I'm back. What did I miss? Where's everyone? Okay.
Yeah, brother, Snakes, man. Yeah, I was just finishing up from work, and yeah, it's very interesting. Oh, hold on a minute, brother. Hold on.
Kaiser, are you still here? It looks like it's dead. Yes, and I will say it was an interesting debate. Once again, Kaiser's logic, faulty, ignorant, based, and that not into cool way, into more old, decrepit way, like to Niger. Very thankful to be on the panel. I wish Kaiser good luck with his channels, that he gets 1 million subscribers. And wish the rest of the panelists and the rest who are still in the comments a good day. And Kaiser, maybe the next time you can explain to me why you're breaking up the streams in different videos. Is it a new tactic, or do you got somehow a warning from your YouTube master? Snake Man out.